Odyssey Sports Station.
It's time to start the show and talk about the sports we saw. Inside jokes and takes from Danger and Battaglia. Bills and the Sabres and the Amherst. Who gave a microphone to these jerks? Gene's a big-timer, a social misfit. Clueless to the title of the biggest buskeg hits. Chuck Muncie's goons have the last say. So thanks for your time, Mr. Mayo. Danger likes his cold ones and he likes his bears. But this is Rochester, Q Francesa.
Oh, who cares?
He's critical of Sean, he's critical of Alan. Of course he married Sandy, cause she's Italian. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. Welcome to the sports bar, that's where you are. With Danger and Battaglia.
A very good afternoon to you as we welcome you on into Rochester's only local sports talk show. It's a sports bar with Danger and Battaglia, and we appreciate you listening however you may be doing so at 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app. You can even watch the sports bar. Our stream is rolling on our YouTube channel at The Fan Rochester and on Twitch at The Fan Rochester. Gino, it's a special day in the sports bar. It's a historic day. Today, a day where we, as Americans, our allegiances are certified, where change is afoot. Today is a day you can take pride in the choices that you have made to get you and yours to this stage of life. There still remains a cloud of uncertainty, but we all dig in. We roll up our sleeves. We remain steadfast in our support. Today, Tuesday, November 5th, in these United States of America, it's the NFL trade deadline at 4 o'clock.
You know, I hope everyone read that like a defensive back going against Ryan Leaf, and that was as easy as a Leaf interception, Danger.
No, come on. Come on.
I give you a little credit.
Come on.
Little credit.
I give you the credit. You're the one that said it yesterday. I'm like, oh, tomorrow could be an interesting day.
Yeah, and I hooked you on that.
Yeah, you said, trade deadline day. I'm like, yep, that's it. That's what we're talking about today in the sports bar. That's what we're about. The NFL trade deadline, less than an hour away. And the Bills aren't without some moves here. They have made a move. However, it's not a trade today. They moved on from veteran safety Mike Edwards, who's being released by the Buffalo Bills today, a guy who came in as a free agent acquisition, got banged up during training camp, and barely saw the field this season. 7 snaps on defense, 13 snaps on special teams, the majority of his time inactive on game days.
Yeah, not a surprise at all. As you particularly at that position, you have to earn the trust of Sean McDermott. And I'm not sure which game it was that he showed up on the injury report, but it was Mike Edwards' illness, with the injury designation, and somebody wrote a snarky comment underneath saying, yeah, what's he sick of not playing? And then Mike Edwards himself liked the post. Like, okay, maybe there's something there. According to the NFL info guys, it was Pelissero that was first with it. He wanted a trade. Nobody was taking here. So the Bills just end up doing the right thing. And like, okay, you don't want to be here. You're gone. It's not going to come back to bite the Buffalo Bills. But now, Danger, with trade deadline coming up at 4 o'clock here, you have 2 roster spots open, as you mentioned. You have that one, and they've yet to officially put DeJuan Smoot on IR, but that's going to open up another spot here.
Yeah, a couple of roster spots open, so we'll see what the Bills decide to do, if anything, here in advance of the 4 o'clock trade deadline. We do have news from around the NFL, some familiar faces and names going to new destinations. I think one of the bigger moves made in the last 24 hours was Zadarius Smith, pass rusher out of Cleveland, joining the Detroit Lions, who obviously have a need there to fill in for Hutchinson. Smith going to the Lions along with a 2026 7th-round draft pick and a 2025 5th-round pick, along with a 26 6th-rounder back to Cleveland. So they get a pass rusher in Detroit for essentially a pick swap.
Yeah, it was a wimpy pick swap. The weird thing about that was this is not breaking news, really. Like we first heard about this on Saturday. Like, wait a second, why is Cleveland playing him? Like, if he's going to go to Detroit, what are you doing today? And
Campbell was probably like, what, if we're going to trade for him, I want to see him play. I don't want him to be held down.
I need more tape.
We need grit. We just want grit. We want him out there. We want to make him plays. So that bolsters up the defensive line there for the Lions, who right now arguably the best team, looking like the best team in the NFL. The Steelers get a wide receiver. And again, this isn't really a surprising name. His name popped up as a trade candidate after he dropped a pass from Aaron Rodgers against the Bills, no less. It's Mike Williams, wide receiver, who was a free agent acquisition by the Jets this offseason. The Jets are getting a 2025 fifth-round pick back from Pittsburgh for Mike Williams.
Okay, so it begs the question, could the Bills have been in on that? Probably not. I don't see the Jets doing the Bills any favors on that. And sure, one pass, you're going to cut the guy. Well, they have Wilson. They certainly have Devontae Adams. I thought, if you're going to make any run at this, why not keep Mike Williams for a fifth-round pick? So I don't know how much this changes Pittsburgh, but I'll say this. I was a little snarky with DeAndre Hopkins, and, well, okay, what does he have left in the tank? That seems to be a pretty good fit.
Yeah, Hopkins isn't washed, and I'm not going to say that Williams to the Steelers is a nothing. I think Williams to the Steelers is automatically their number 2 wide receiver. I mean, they have Pickens and really a bunch of guys, and Williams with his size, I think can be a player for Russell Wilson, somebody who's notorious for just kind of throwing it up there, throwing those sky balls up there and hoping his guy can go up and get it, and that's Williams' at strength at this point in his career. He's still big, he's still strong, he still has size. So I like that move for Pittsburgh. You give up a fifth-round pick, and, the writing was on the wall with the Jets bringing in Devontae Adams, and basically when Williams is in the Aaron Rodgers doghouse, you're not getting out of it with the New York Jets. The Commanders get some help for their secondary corner, Marshawn Lattimore from New Orleans. They're going to send the Saints a third, a fourth, and a sixth-round pick in exchange for Lattimore and a fifth-round pick.
4 picks in total.
Yeah.
Wow.
And Lattimore, I'm sure that nagging hamstring injury that he's had the last couple of weeks will feel much better as he goes to a new environment, which we've seen from time to time in the NFL. So Lattimore is now a member of the Washington Commanders. I saw that Khalil Herbert is leaving my Chicago Bears and heading to the Bengals. Zach Moss has been injured and has a neck injury, probably won't be back for the rest of this season, so this move made sense for the Bengals, and Herbert will be a welcome addition to that Bengals backfield here down the stretch. The Bears getting back a 25 seventh-round pick in return as compensation.
So 4 o'clock coming up, Bills with 2 spots to fill here. We will talk a couple angles on this. First of all, our buddy Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard Shout podcast, will join us at the bottom of the hour. We will kind of look ahead also to the Colts here and what's going on out in Indianapolis. Is this a Bills team that is growing up here? Meaning, all right, in years past, these are the types of games you would lose, okay? In fact, you always had that kind of November fall asleep at the wheel type of game, whether that was the Monday night game against Denver last year or the Urban Meyer game in Jacksonville. Well, this has the trappings of that. Are the Bills mature enough to go in and take care of business? Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, and the Shout podcast. And also coming up today with the trade deadline, you brought up Mike Williams. Is that somebody that now, if he's on the waiver wire, you're going to look at? I would think so. What does this all mean here? Michael F. Florio, NFL Network at 4:45 today.
Yeah, we'll talk some pickups for Week 10, the waiver wire, as you're trying to build your roster for a success and another win this weekend and hopefully a championship in your fantasy leagues. Amerks head coach Michael Leone will join us over the phone as the team is en route to Cleveland for a matchup against the Monsters tomorrow. Team is red hot right now, 4 straight wins for the Rochester Americans. Coach Leone joining us at 4:25.
Yeah, it's a Cleveland team they beat already this season, so now they go to their barn, and that'll be tomorrow night at 7 o'clock. Michael Hauser is kind of a fun story. Right, he's 31 years old. Right now he's near the top in terms of wins on the AHL season. It's a development league, so I want to get his thoughts on that and how some of these guys are coming along. But certainly you love sweeping Utica last weekend. Michael Leone joining us right about 4:30.
All right, the table is set, and you can join us anytime at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN is the phone number, and you can always engage with us on Elon's Twitter. That's X, at the Fan Rochester, if you dare. I'm trying not to go on X today. I'm trying to avoid all social media today.
My phone, if I get one more phony baloney text, oh my gosh, unless you give me money, so-and-so is going to lose the election, I'm like, well, Sorry. Yeah, it might be night for the phone off, and I don't know. I'm doing some other stuff, but sticking to sports here, Danger. I'm just wondering. Listen, you and I have been a little snarky when it comes to this. This topic has been reoccurring. It's also noteworthy that the Buffalo Bills have not reissued number 24. You need a safety. There is a guy that knows the system inside and out. And the guy you just released, Mike Edwards, well, if everything was going according to plan, I'm not sure Mike Edwards would have been active for the rest of the season. So let me just run an idea past you. If Micah Hyde were up to this role, meaning, Micah, you see what's happening here in Buffalo. You see the good stuff. You were such a big part of it. Come on up back. Help us out. We can't guarantee you playing time. But it'd be great to have you in that room. And gosh, if something came up along the way, but you know all these guys that are in there, not Cole Bishop, but certainly we could help you. You could help Cole learn this position too. What do you say, Micah Hyde? Let me point out the obvious. I have no idea what Micah Hyde's thinking. Nobody does. And I'm not sure he has anything left in the tank, but if he's willing to accept that role, Danger, why not?
What kind of shape is he in is the first question I would have. And then the second question is the question we won't have the answer to, and that's, does he have a desire to be a guy who isn't on the field? He's played his entire career. He's not a backup. He's never been a backup. You could say that this guy has a future in coaching if he wants it, and maybe that's part of what is enticing to him. But the reality is, barring an injury, if you bring him back, he's not getting on the field. He's not a better option at this stage of his career and not having played it all this year than Taylor Rapp or DeMar Hamlin. And I would argue maybe even Cole Bishop. Cole Bishop inexperienced, but certainly more athletic. So there is some sense to be made of what you're saying, and I understand it. We don't know where his head is at in terms of what role he's willing to accept. But I have to imagine that most of these guys, being as competitive as they are, and I think part of why the Bills are great this season is because that competition exists, because there's no clear-cut wide receiver one, that you want guys competing for that ball. You want guys that are going to make the most out of every opportunity. When you're on the field on the defensive line, you want to be impactful. There is no clear-cut. There are starters, sure, but the way they rotate through these guys, I have a feeling that he's not going to want to come in and compete for playing time.
I'll say the top reason with the objection would actually be the money. The Bills, as we know, don't have this war chest where they can go out and spend money. And the contract he's coming off, the last one he signed, was 5 years, $30 million, which he lived the life of it. That's an averaging of $6 million. You're not getting a prorated contract of $6 million. You would be getting the league minimum. So I keep going back and forth on this. And if Micah Hyde is looking at his resume and there's one thing that's missing from his resume, and that would be Super Bowl, and he sees what's happening here. Yes, I said it out loud, okay? The Chiefs and Bills are headed on this collision course, and the Ravens or the Steelers can put their hand up in the air, certainly, but the Bills are in the conversation. How do you not feel some tugs at the heart when you're watching all this stuff? Like, these guys you really care about. The bonds of football are really, really deep. And if Brandon Beane picked up the phone and had a conversation with Micah Hyde and said, here's what we can do. I can't offer you anything more than the minimum. I can't offer you anything other than a spot on the roster to help. I can't even offer you any playing time. Well, how about it?
That feels desperate to me. And I don't see Brandon Beane as somebody who's desperate right now. In fact, I would hope that if he's picking up the phone, he's talking to other teams about players that are younger and more athletic at this stage of their career, that have more upside, that can actually be impactful when they make their way back on the field. What you're describing is a player whose value comes off the field, and in which case I would say go ahead and make him a coach already. If you're going to make that call, just say, hey, come and be an assistant. Come in and be a part of what we have on the sideline, but you're not going to get on the field.
Yeah, and one of the things that I think we kind of gloss over. The Bills are 7-2. How did that happen? They were all this talent and dead cap and blah, blah, blah. They knew when to move on from these guys. I'll leave Hyde to the end here because we don't know. But unfortunately for him, he's getting lumped in with these other two. Tre'Davious White, good for him. He signed big money with the Rams. Last I checked,
they can't trade him.
They can't trade him.
They want to trade him, can't trade him.
No, he's going to end up getting cut. And say what you want about Jordan Poyer.
Yeah, Jordan Poyer, I mean, his contributions to the Buffalo Bills will long be remembered. And I think if you're going to talk about Jordan Poyer and his contributions, when you're doing that highlight reel, you've got to add him taking a real bad angle as a Dolphin against James Cook in week 2 and giving up that long touchdown. And let's go ahead and throw on the helmet-to-helmet hit on Keon Coleman from Sunday that resulted in the Bills extending their drive. So Jordan Poyer, even though he's not a part of the Bills roster, still contributing to the success of the Buffalo Bills. So a quarter after 3, we're 45 minutes away from the NFL trade deadline. And I think it's also worth noting here, Gino, that Brandon Beane, at least last season, literally waited until the last minute to make a couple of moves. The Rasul Douglas move came down right around the deadline, right around like a couple minutes before the 4 o'clock deadline. The trade of Nyheim Hines, from 2022 was a deadline move. So these, the moves that have been made already have been made, but I don't believe that Brandon Beane is sitting back right now in his office, not on the phone, not trying to make something happen here before we get to 4 o'clock.
Wouldn't you love to see what that's like? He's got assistants around him, multiple phones working. It should be a lot of fun. You can join the conversation, 866-4FAN, 866-4326. JB and Irondequoit. What's up, buddy?
Hey, guys. First time I ever got on the show. I'm happy to talk to you guys. How are you?
Glad to have you on, man. Appreciate it.
Hey, I just wanted to give you a little update. It's not number 24 for Micah Hyde. It's 23, but that's all good.
My bad.
No problem. Hey, I was thinking the same thing, but check it out. I ran this by One Bills Live today. There's a big thing on the YouTube talking about one of the big rumors for Buffalo is going after Micah Hyde. And I was telling them how, they were saying it's efficient because they got a $2 million cap. Next year, you lose money with Vaughn and probably cutting Samuel, and you'd be able to bring him back. Obviously, you got to sign Rousseau and Benford and whatnot, but they're talking about how, now that Dak's out 6 weeks, and then Dak called him trash, and then I guess he's really good friends with Vaughn. He's good friends with Cooper. So they're saying some ties there. This is, like I said, online, these Buffalo chat room things. I'm not saying there's any fruition to it, but I was just wondering what you guys thought.
Well, do that in a heartbeat. Micah Parsons and JB, thanks.
Right.
You can, and by the way, fact check us anytime. Yes, Micah Hyde wore 23. I'm a dumbass, all right? So, yes, not 24. Okay, we make a mistake, put my hand up in the air. Sorry. The Cowboys are doing the opposite, JB. They're not sellers. They're not. They traded a 4th-round pick for for a Jag.
I was saving this for later, but
I
can't do it.
That's the obvious point.
I can't do it here. I mean, the day that we all hope to see our teams improve through talent acquisition, or the day that you hope your team will build some more hope with some draft capital, that team made a move that frankly confirms they are a joke franchise. They should never be taken seriously. I want to congratulate the Carolina Panthers. Your biggest win of the season came today when you received a 4th-round pick from Dallas in exchange for wide receiver Jonathan Mingo and a 7th-round pick? Jonathan Mingo? Who's Jonathan Mingo? Mingo was a 2nd-round pick in 2023 out of Ole Miss. 12 receptions, 121 yards this season, 1 catch in the last 4 games, and has only 2 games his career with more than 4 catches. A 4th-rounder. A 4th-rounder. Congratulations, Dan Morgan, on fleecing the real commissioner of the NFL. They are a joke franchise.
No, it's a joke owner, Danger. I gotta be very careful how I say this because, Jerry Jones, Hall of Famer, Jerry Jones, 3 Super Bowl championships. How many years ago is that now? 29. Yeah, 29 years ago. The Cowboys last were in the Super Bowl. This is a joke. He is a joke. He is somebody that should not be making football decisions. I'm sorry. You're just lost a lot off the fastball. Put it this way. Who's going to tell him no? Who's going to tell him no? You are now Al Davis. Jerry Jones, if he lives 10 more years, is still going to be the chief decision maker for the Dallas Cowboys. It takes a lot of energy to run an organization. And for Jerry Jones, dude, the game has passed you by. You should be embarrassed, Cowboy fan, that he made this move today.
Well, you have a lot of things to be embarrassed about, just the way this season has gone. And now without your quarterback and rumors that you're going to trade Parsons, I don't know if they're going to trade Parsons. I just feel like even if you're Jerry Jones and you've lost your mind and not all your marbles are there, you got to recognize that Parsons is really good player. And you might clean house at the end of this season. Parsons is still going to be there. You bring in a new head coach, a new defensive coordinator. I mean, shocking that it's not working with Mike Zimmer as a defensive coordinator. Who could have seen that coming? That Mike Zimmer can't connect with today's player. What? Shocking. You're kidding me. Really? They don't want to play for the guy because he's just a byproduct of days gone by. He's not a guy that can communicate or get his message across to this generation of athlete. And so none of that surprises me.
It's either that or the Cowboys were one of these teams, Danger, that their offense was so capable, they would just outscore opponents. It really didn't matter. And now that the offense really isn't that good.
Yeah, well, Dan Quinn isn't bad. Dan Quinn was their defensive coordinator, and he's doing a good job in Washington. I don't think Dan Quinn is bad. He got an Atlanta team, to the Super Bowl. He choked, but he got a team to the Super Bowl in Atlanta. I don't think Dan Quinn is bad, and I certainly think he's Mike Zimmer is a clear downgrade defensively. And I think that might be part of it. Like, these guys might not want to play for that guy. They're injured, okay, fine. But Mike Zimmer ain't it. And this Cowboys franchise, if you are a fan of the Cowboys, you're getting close to bag on the head time here for this season, because it's not going to get any better here with Dak Prescott being shelved here and headed to IR. I'd be shocked if Parsons is any way, shape, or form out of Dallas. They got to recognize, no, he's talented, and we need him here, and we can weather that storm.
Breaking news, Danger. Breaking news in the sports bar.
Ow! 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 It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far.
We just talked about this. The Rams have just traded Tre'Davious White to the Baltimore Ravens.
Okay.
It's a 7th-round pick exchange, 2026 and 2027. What does that mean? Nothing. You want him? Here you go.
Well, I just wonder what White has left. What we saw of him earlier this year in L.A. was not good. It was ugly. But you can say with the Ravens, bringing him in might be an upgrade from what they're a horrible pass defense. And maybe Trey White is an upgrade over what they have, or maybe he actually does get a chance to get on the field and contribute. I just know that what we saw of him earlier this year in L.A. was not good. Not good at all.
No, and it's one of those moves where, okay, if you're the Bills, if you're Brandon Beane, should you have blocked this move?
No.
Why?
No, what you have.
Kyrie Elam did okay. He was okay last week.
Yeah. Matt Perino is going to have thoughts on everything happening here as we get closer to the trade deadline at 4 o'clock. We'll go back and recap the win against Miami, look ahead to Sunday's matchup against Indianapolis as well. He covers the Buffalo Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard, and he joins us every Tuesday afternoon at this time. Our buddy Matt Perino next on The Fan.
You're listening to the Sports Bar.
update.
Bills have released safety Mike Edwards. Edwards had asked to be traded. The Bills now have 2 roster spots to fill, with the trade deadline coming up at 4 p.m. Meanwhile, the Colts, the next opponent, Dan Orlovsky, ESPN on One Bills Live, talking about their offense.
You're going to get a bevy of play-action pass, a ton, and Joe is going to throw the ball into parties. Joe is wildly aggressive, wildly confident, and he's capable of it. The number one person you have to stop is Josh Downs.
We'll talk to Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard in the Shout podcast, coming up next year in the Sports Bar. Trade just coming in right now. Tre'Davious White goes from the Rams to the Ravens. Mike Williams goes from the Jets to the Steelers. Marshawn Lattimore from the Saints to the Commanders. Sabres hockey tonight. Buffalo hosting Ottawa. Our coverage will begin at 7 o'clock. Gene Battaglin, the sports leader, the Fan, Rochester.
Pull up a stool and join us. 585-866-4FAN. 866-432-6. The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia on the Sports Leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
NFL trade deadline now less than a half an hour away. The Buffalo Bills with 2 open roster spots, and we welcome in Matt Perino covering the team for the Syracuse Post-Standard. Syracuse.com, where you can read his work. And Matt, 2 roster spots, and Brandon Beane with a history of making moves right up against that deadline. I guess the easy question is, are they done? Do you think the Bills are going to sit on their hands? Are they done here before 4 o'clock?
My best guess is it's going to really come down to the cost. You're seeing a lot of teams surveying the market, and I think the most interesting one that was the Chiefs kind of being in on Marshawn Lattimore until the price just got too much that they were willing to pay. And that's what I don't think Brandon Beane is going to chase. He's not going to chase the deal that's going to cost him too much of the draft capital that he's accumulated. He's already given up one of those pieces in the Mari Cooper trade a couple weeks ago, and I think that that's the piece of this. I've always thought it was going to be maybe a secondary piece. Sebastian Joseph Day makes a lot of sense. Can they get the compensation right? It appears that there's a couple of teams that are talking to the Titans right now, according to reports. So that might be what the Titans are doing. They're probably waiting it out, trying to see if they can't play a couple teams together and see if they can't up the price a little bit. And on the Lattimore front, the Washington Commanders ended up paying more than the Chiefs were willing to pay, and it's a great thing for the Bills. And apparently they were in on the Baltimore Ravens were in on Lattimore too. The price was not right for them. They end up with Tre'Davious White, which I think Bills fans are probably a little bit more comfortable with.
Yeah, Matt, we did have the Bills making a move today. Mike Edwards released. Didn't see all that much time. Any thoughts as to why this really didn't work out for Edwards here in Buffalo?
There's a lot that goes into it. I think first and foremost, when you come into a new situation and you have to learn a new defense and you're never on the field, to be able to play in games, that is going to put you behind the 8 ball. And I think that it wasn't just the summer. It was the spring, too. I mean, he got hurt early in the off-season program, so now you're doing rehab off to the side, trying to figure out, all right, what this defense is like without getting into the reps, and it's like mental rep after mental rep. Then you get to the season, and they realize, oh, wait, we have Damar Hamlin. He knows the system. He's comfortable in what we're asking him to do. And I also think that, he got $2.8 million, 1.6 guaranteed. That's a low-end veteran contract, and it was to come in and compete for the job. Even Sean McDermott said that they kind of thought he would compete for a starting job. But don't forget, this is a career backup. I mean, he's only had 1 year where he was a regular every down starter. That was with Tampa in 2022, the year after they won the Super Bowl, when I think they moved on from a safety or two. And he played so well that they decided not to bring him back the following year. And he was in a backup role in Kansas City. So I think what happened is the signing maybe got blown up a little bit too much, and fans had this expectation. But he was never going to be the heir apparent to Micah Hyde. I think, Damar Hamlin always kind of had the inside track on it because of his history with Sean McDermott, the scheme, understanding, and he's younger.
Well, let's talk about it since you brought it up, because Gino and I think a lot of Bills fans are wondering now, with one less safety on the roster and a couple of roster spots, holding out hope that a familiar name will be back there in the Bills secondary. What do you think about Micah Hyde making a return at some point here? They don't have to do it before the trade deadline, but do you think that there would be any interest in Micah Hyde coming back to the Bills, accepting a role as kind of like a a mentor instead of a guy who's on the field. I struggle with that because I feel like a lot of these guys, they love to play so much, and they're such competitors that taking a back seat to anybody is something they don't really want to do.
Right. It's so complicated because I think it's like a great story, right? I'm rooting for it because, getting Micah back in the locker room down the stretch would be great for me professionally. He was always, somebody great to talk to in the locker room, has been a part of this entire build with Sean McDermott. So adding that back into the mix makes a lot of sense. But I go back to last season, and I don't think by the end of last year I was convinced that he can come back and play NFL football. And the fact that they kind of hung out all off season long and, waited and said, yeah, it's still in the mix and so on and so forth. And the fact that we haven't heard any real rumblings about it. Is it always a possibility? Of course. But he'd have to be, in football shape, or be in a place where he can get back into football shape pretty quickly. And then there's just a question, like, you're going to play the Baltimore Ravens down the stretch. You're going to play, potentially in the playoffs, the Chiefs. You're going to play the Chiefs, the 49ers, the Lions down the stretch in the regular season. Do you really think that, are you confident in Micah Hyde being able to come in here and really be a factor in those games against teams that really want to be physical and run the ball? I have my doubts. But at the same time, I think that it could mean a lot from a morale standpoint, like what he means to a lot of people in that building. So I'm never going to rule it out, but I'm more on the side of probably not. And, I think that they're eager potentially that if Cole Bishop is called upon, if there's an injury, what does that look like now that he's gotten thrown out there for a start? He hasn't played a ton. He's had some moments on special teams. I still think they're pretty bullish on what he can do given the opportunity. It's been the year of the rookies. I mean, all of these rookies have come in outside of Bishop and found a way to make an impact at some point. That could be a continuation of that storyline.
Matt Perino joining us, and just so everybody knows, if Brandon Beane does make a move while we have Matt on, we'll get Matt's thoughts, and then you got to scoot here as your day job with the Syracuse Post-Standard. Certainly, we appreciate all the work you do there. Matt, I didn't think the Bills might be looking for a wide receiver. However, the circumstances here surrounding Keon Coleman and the way that they kind of phrased it, more information, I'm thinking back, that's kind of how they described the Terrell Bernard injury, where we didn't know much about it, and he missed some time. But what's your read right now on the Bills' rookie wide receiver with that wrist injury?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, I saw him in the locker room afterwards with the brace on, and it seemed like he was moving okay. Like a lot of times, depending the severity, you wonder if there might be a sling on there and everything. But, you don't want to, try to figure out until we actually hear the news what this is going to look like and what the kind of timeline is going to be. But the fact that he's still getting evaluated on it, I think raises the level of concern. And if they lose Keon Coleman for an extended period of time, or in worst case scenario for like a real long stretch of time, that changes the math for this offense because, Amari Cooper coming in definitely revitalized and recharged this group. But if Keon Coleman, who is arguably your most explosive playmaker on offense, is now no longer in the mix, I feel like it kind of dulls things a little bit. So will the Bills look to make a move there? I don't know how many guys are left out there that you can make a play for. I know that they we still have kind of not seen the KJ Hamler experiment. I'm surprised that we haven't, in all of these elevations over the last couple of weeks. We've seen Virgil activated the last couple of weeks. I was surprised 2 weeks ago that it wasn't Hamler. So I still think that's something they can play. A guy that has been in their system now going back to January. He started to do his install when they signed him to a futures contract. I wouldn't be opposed to seeing what that looks like. And the more that we go along here and Curtis Samuel is dealing with this, revolving door of injuries. It was the toe early in the season. Now it's the shoulder. Joe Brady commented on, how much he played hurt this past week, and it leads you to believe that he's probably going to be hurt again this week against the Indianapolis Colts. Maybe getting a fresh, healthy KJ Hamler out there might not be the worst idea. I'm surprised they haven't gone to that yet, and maybe this is the week that we see it.
Matt, I want to go back to Sunday, the win, and we talk about how important confidence is for a player in the NFL. If you're playing with confidence, chances are you're a part of something bigger and you're on a winning squad. And we were worried about Tyler Bass for most of the preseason, the beginning of the season, wondering how confident he was. And I think you can erase that as an excuse moving forward. If Tyler Bass struggles, it's not about his confidence because it has to be an all-time high given what he did on Sunday, correct?
Oh, yeah. And, I think that this is a guy that he was hearing it, and we don't probably talk enough about it over the last couple of weeks as this storyline is kind of built and built and built, like what he went through in the offseason. I mean, to get bullied the way that he did, some of the threats that he received online led to him deleting all of his social media accounts, and then obviously a lot of Bills fans donating to his charity and that kind of cool story as well. But, he went through a lot this offseason, and coming in knowing that all eyes are on you every single kick, I mean, that it's pressure-packed, and it felt like that. Like when you talk to him, when you talk to the Bills about it, whether it be Sean McDermott or Brandon Beane, there's a level of consternation about the entire situation. So to have him have that moment in a game where you have the first two kicks where he makes 47 and 40-yarder, and you're like, okay, like he's building some momentum here. Like this is a 3 weeks now where he's been really good. Then he just badly misses the extra point. And you're like, oh, man, is this a complete, fall back to what was going on early in the season? And to even send him out there for that 61-yarder, I think that Sean McDermott, either deserves some credit for that or some like kind of side-eye looks. Like there's probably a lot of people in that stadium that wouldn't have trusted Bass in that spot, but they did. They sent him out there in a huge spot because if he doesn't make that, they at least have a Hail Mary opportunity to try to win the game. We know the Bills' history under Sean McDermott with Hail Mary. So it was a big moment. I think that there's not going to be a lot that he deals with moving forward that's going to test him the way that he was tested for the most part over the last 9 months. And I think he's in a good spot. I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of this is kind of put behind him. And I wonder also, making a kick like that, if it relieves a lot of the fans who have been kind of on him when he does make a mistake, if maybe he doesn't get a little bit more rope because of the big-time moment he just had.
Yeah, we're talking to Matt Perino, Syracuse Post-Standard, Bills and Colts this week, and this seems like a long time ago, but that was the last time these two teams played. That was the Jonathan Taylor game, as I thought. Frank Reich has been fired from 2 jobs since then. Matt, my fun fact of the day, the fact that the last time the Bills won in Indy, 1998, the game that sparked Flutie Mania as Rob Johnson gets hurt in that game. Concern coming out of the Dolphin game, the Bills' run defense a little leaky there. Was it just something that Miami was doing, or do you think the Bills can get this cleaned up in time to face Jonathan Taylor and the Colts?
I mean, I think it's a couple of different things. I think you have a second-year linebacker in Dorian Williams who, has shown really well at times, but I think the area that his game still needs to grow is in the run game. And at the second level, they miss Matt Milano a ton. Terrell Bernard was really good, and Tyrell Dotson's strength of his game last year and why he was the answer when Milano got hurt was his ability against the run. And I think that you're seeing not having somebody in that role that's consistent, that flies and reads, the gaps and flies through the way that he is. I thought Terrell Bernard had a really good game for the most part the other day. He made a couple of big-time tackles, and you see his imprint in that part of the game. But up front, I mean, you got Greg Rousseau, you have A.J. Epinesa. I think in the interior, that's where things have faltered a little bit, and it's in concert with the linebacker play at times. But now you're down Dewan Smoot, who I think has really been a key cog for them against the run at times. Like he was just coming back from that groin injury early in the season when the Baltimore Ravens game happened, and I thought they played better against the run the last couple. And now without him, without Dwayne Carter, I think you liked some of what you saw from Elianku the other day. But again, if they don't make a move here in the next few minutes, I don't know where the answers are coming from. Bobby Babbitt yesterday said it could be a week-by-week situation. There's contingencies that were, that have been in place and that they have plans for when guys are out of the lineup. But if that doesn't work in a week against a Jonathan Taylor, who any given week can just completely brutalize you on the ground, that's a huge concern. I think going into this game, stopping Jonathan Taylor has to be one of the top priorities for Sean McDermott and his defense.
Matt, we want to give you the last 15 minutes before the trade deadline to do what the rest of us are doing, which is scan your wire and wait for some breaking news. So before we let you go, let everybody what they can expect this week at Syracuse.com and the Shout Pod.
Yeah, if there is a move made, we will have you covered at the website. Of course, my travel baseball team starts indoor practice tonight, 5 to 7, so the show will have to wait until 7:30 or 8 tonight, but we will have you covered at some point today. I mean, it's not a busy day, right? Nobody's doing anything on Tuesday, November 5th.
This is right. It's a true story here, and I told Ryan Talbot this story. There is somebody I met at St. John Fisher. He's the new sports information director. He comes up to me. He's like, "Hey, Eugene, yeah, I know you." And my chest kind of, puffs out a little bit. "Oh, well, thank you. Yeah, I've saw you a couple times on the Shout podcast." Mike Hogan, buddy of Ryan's from Olean. So, yeah. So thank you for the invite in past years and got me noticed.
There you go. This is Gene's kind of under the radar, trying to get back on as a guest, the passive aggressive.
It's very passive aggressive, Matt. Very.
It's been too long. I feel like we got to get you back on soon. I'm thinking maybe training camp, right? We dial that thing back up again, and we get you on an episode. We'll do a sit down. We'll really we'll make it special.
Look, man, you're going to have to do it a lot sooner than training camp. I say mandatory mini camp, OTAs. I mean,
Chiefs, Niners, Jets. No. There's all these games coming up, Matt.
Oh, yeah, I think Matt has to go. There's probably something breaking somewhere. Matt, appreciate the time, buddy.
Later, boys.
Yeah. Matt Perino covers a team for the Syracuse Post-Standard. And, of course, the Shout podcast. So you got stopped and you didn't big time this guy? You actually, he knew who you were?
No. Knew he's in charge of all the sports information at Fisher.
I had an unintentional Battaglia big time on Friday night.
Well, that's the brand name of this now?
The Battaglia big time, yeah.
I don't like
it's
that,
unintentional.
Right.
Unintentional.
Unintentional.
I was, my daughter wanted to go to the McQuaid sectional game against Pittsford on Friday night.
Did you end up going?
I ended up going.
Okay.
And I'm there, and one of her friends' mom was there. One of her golf teammates' mom was there, so I saw her and, greeted her. And right next to her was this gentleman standing there, and I introduced her. "Hey, I'm Chris." And he looks at me, he's like, "Yeah, I'm her husband." I've met him a handful of times, but he was completely bundled up. Everybody was, dressed warmly because the conditions, it was a nice night, but it was chilly. And I didn't even recognize him because he was all bundled up. And I felt like the biggest big timer. And I'm like, I need to stop doing that. I need to stop introducing myself to people who already know who I am. This guy probably thinks, dude, we've met so many times. How can you not recognize me at this point? But and
I'm the one who gets criticized.
That's an unintentional Battaglia bit. I told my wife, and she's like, you just need to stop introducing yourself to people. I'm like, maybe you're right. Maybe I'll just continue to fly under the radar.
But you're not Mike Danger in public. That's
I was in dad mode. I was in dad mode. I was there with my daughter, and I was both my daughters. My younger daughter running around with her friends all over the place, and my older daughter actually taking an interest in what was happening on the field.
Mm-hmm.
Good weekend of Section 5 coming up as well. Can't believe it. Fairport getting shocked by the 8-seed Rush Henrietta Royal Comets.
You got McQuaid Aquinas this week. Yes.
Wait, is it McQuaid is a 2
and Aquinas is the 3?
And Aquinas is a 3. So what is it? UPrep and
Rush Henrietta.
So it's not seeded where the higher seed plays the lower seed.
No,
it's the bracket.
Oh. Yeah, I was wondering if they're going to move that game from McQuaid to, say, Fisher or someone. No, for last I heard, and somebody correct me if I'm wrong, they're going to keep that game at McQuaid.
Yeah.
Unlike years ago where they played it at the baseball stadium, but the baseball stadium was 99 yards. But nobody will notice.
Yeah.
Nobody will notice.
Such a weird story in the history of Section 5 football, but we wish good luck to all the remaining teams and their families. So I will do my best to not introduce myself to people moving forward. I will not Battaglia big time anybody else moving forward. We've got more on the way as the NFL trade deadline is 10 minutes away. So while we take a break here, we'll scan the wire. We'll see if Brandon Beane makes any sort of last-minute move. We'll check in with Amherst head coach Mike Leone, who a bit of breaking news here in the sports bar. I don't know if you saw this while we were talking to
Ow! It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far.
While we were talking to Matt Perino, the Sabres loaned Yuri Kulik back to the Amherst. So Yuri Kulik potentially available, we'll ask Mike
Yeah,
Leone.
I would think you're making that move to get him some light. Why not? Like, honestly, he's not going to be in line for Buffalo tonight. Let him be in the lineup tomorrow for the Hammer.
Absolutely. So Mike Leone stops by the sports bar here in about a half an hour or so. We'll also talk some fantasy football before 5 o'clock with our buddy from NFL Network, Michael F. Florio, stopping by as well. We have time for your calls at 866-4326, 585-866-4FAN.
W239BF Rochester, the sports leader. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester. An Odyssey sports station. The Fan, Rochester. Sports update.
The NFL trade deadline has just passed. So far, the Bills have not made a move, but something may trickle in here at the last second. The Bills, we did learn today, releasing safety Mike Edwards. Edwards had asked to be traded. Chris Brown today on One Bills Live offering his thoughts.
There hasn't been any definitive reason on it. I don't believe it is a physical skill issue. I mean, for all we know, it could be a personality match issue. We don't know. But I think he's certainly capable of playing the position. For whatever reason, he was not deemed a match.
With Duane Smoot going on IR, the Bills have 2 roster spots to fill. Trades that we do know of. Tre'Davious White goes from the Rams to the Ravens. Mike Williams, the wide receiver, goes from the Jets to the Steelers. Corner Marshawn Lattimore from the Saints to the Commanders. Yuri Kulik has been loaned to the Amherst. Sabres tonight take on Ottawa. Gene Battaglia, the Fan, Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
I always think of the Colts as a pretty good team, and then they have not been great. There's a real chance here that Joe Flacco could bounce back and play a lot better next week. But the state right now is chaotic. I also think they're miscalculating the roster and how good it is, because in playing Joe Flacco, they're also telling you, well, we have a playoff caliber team right now, and we're going to capitalize on that with a veteran that we feel better in. And the Colts to me are not there.
Mike Danger.
I think there are elements of the Colts to worry about. The biggest being their running back and their run game. If you think Jonathan Taylor is still a threat, and I do, then your job is to eliminate him and force Joe Flacco to beat you.
Gene Battaglia.
Are we going to get nervous and jerky about the Colts here?
We'll see.
Because of that, I think that this Bills team will sit up straight and look. Sean McDermott's such a good coach. I don't think we'd be talking about trap game, or should we be talking about a trap game?
It's a trap. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
NFL trade deadline has now come and gone, 4 o'clock. And as of right now, we don't have any news from the Buffalo Bills. That doesn't mean that we won't get something here in the next few minutes, as you know, things may be posted before 4 o'clock that haven't been reported yet, but it looks less and less likely that the Bills are going to make a move here at the trade deadline.
Maybe. Because they just made official Duane Smoot going on IR.
Okay.
So that makes it official that there are the 2 roster spots open. It doesn't mean that something's coming, but if you do have the ability now to bring up 2 guys today, if you wanted to. And refresh, nothing happened.
Yeah, if you're just joining us on trade deadline day, we welcome you into the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia. Thanks for listening at 95.7 FM, AM 950, the free-to-download Odyssey app. You can get us on your smart device when you ask it to play 95.7 The Fan. We've got our stream up. You can watch the Sports Bar on YouTube or Twitch. Check out our channel on YouTube. Like and subscribe while you're there. Leave a comment. Put a little wind in the sails just to get you caught up on what you may have missed here with the trade deadline. You mentioned in your update, I think the more recent one of relevancy to Bills fans would be Trey White leaving L.A. and heading to the Ravens.
So if we're projecting a Bills-Ravens matchup in the postseason, should that worry Bills fans? It would be an interesting storyline, I suppose. I don't see anything in Tre'Davious White's game that would make you worried that he's going to come back and haunt the Buffalo Bills. But that being said, the not-so-secret about the Baltimore Ravens, their secondary is trash. You can throw the ball on them, and the Bills started to figure that out until they had that ill-fated trick play that went awry and really sent them in the other direction in that loss.
Bigger names that have been dealt here in the last 24 hours include pass rusher Zadarius Smith joining the Lions from Cleveland. He's going to the Lions along with a 2026 7th-round pick. And a 2025 5th-round pick and 2026 6th-rounder go to Cleveland. So the Lions get their replacement for Aiden Hutchinson here down the stretch.
Yeah, the whole storyline was weird because we knew about this Sunday morning. And wait a second, the Browns are still playing Zadarius Smith? What? Like, are you really putting him on the trade block when you could get hurt out there?
Coach Grit wants to see him survive another game before he makes a deal for him. You want Dan Campbell wanted him out in the field. No, don't rest him. No, we want him coming in calloused. All gristle, just all grit. That's what we want out of our guys. So Smith to the Lions. Marshawn Lattimore leaving New Orleans and headed to Washington. Now the Commanders, you could say here, maybe paid a steep price. They're sending the Saints a third, a fourth, and a sixth-round pick in exchange for Lattimore and a fifth, but they get some help in their defensive backfield.
Yeah, and it should give the Saints a little cap relief. He was under contract until 2026, so that's what kind of makes this unique. Usually it's guys on expiring contracts. What can we get? He's not part of our long-term vision. Can we move up a couple spots? This was not that type of trade danger. So Lattimore's a guy that's going to be sticking in Washington for at least next season, if not 2026. And look, for Washington fans, I'm happy for you. After decades of just incompetence, your team going out and making a move here today, helping out in what should be a fun playoff run. Look, they're the number 2 seed right now in the NFC.
Yeah, they're a lot of fun. The Steelers got better, and this is a player that I think matches up with Russell Wilson's skill set in 2024, and that's their acquisition here of Jets wide receiver Mike Williams in exchange for a fifth-round pick in 2025.
So watch Mike Williams do things in Pittsburgh that Jet fans will be saying, well, how come that didn't happen? I mean, is it just as simple as, hey, wet turf, he slips on the field, ball incomplete, there's your ball game, Jets falling to the Buffalo Bills?
Ball incomplete, but that was the ball that was picked off.
Okay, right.
The Taron Johnson play, yeah. I mean, that put him in the doghouse with Aaron Rodgers publicly calling him out for running the wrong route, and at that point you knew, he's probably on the out. You bring in Devontae Adams, that seals it, and to the Jets' credit, they get a fifth-round pick in return for a guy that really they had no interest in keeping on their roster, and wide receiver Mike Williams. We'll see how he fares now that he's in Pittsburgh. Hey, I wanted to bring this up, too, before we get to Mike Leone, Amerks head coach, who's going to join us here in about 20 minutes. The Amerks are red hot, 4 straight wins, and now finding out that they're going to get Yuri Kulik back in their roster as the Sabres have loaned him back down to Rochester. Do you see who the Raiders are bringing on as an assistant offensive coach?
I did, and for everybody, this is somebody who he's a former NFL head coach. In fact, a former NFL head coach of the Raiders.
Yeah.
Hasn't been in the league since 2019. So 5 years. You think, okay, wait a second, you're back? Well, part of it is his son, right? He's helping out his son, right?
His son is the interim offensive coordinator. It's wild. I didn't know this because I've never had a reason to look up the Raiders coaching staff. But this coaching staff for the Raiders, when I mention like what they've got going on here, you're going to be like, oh, well, maybe that explains some of why they're a two-win team this year. Names like Marvin Lewis, Joe Philbin, now Norv Turner, Rob Ryan. Rob Ryan is part of the Raiders organization.
No idea.
Rob Ryan is a senior defensive assistant. Ricky Manning Jr., former players on this coaching staff, coaching the corners.
Wait, just go back for 1 second.
Yeah.
Like the obvious punchline, like a Ryan in Vegas. I see no problem.
Yeah. What could possibly go wrong? Cadillac Williams is their running backs coach. Edgar Bennett is coaching wide receivers.
So is this just Antonio Pierce calling up buddies and just like, hey, you want to come coach?
I tell you what, man. And now you've got Norv as your senior advisor, offensive senior advisor, with his son Scott as the interim offensive coordinator. Again, under the headline of what could possibly go wrong. This is your Raiders coaching staff, and you're wondering what's wrong?
I love the second-generation coaches. I mean, it works out every once in a while, right? I guess if you're, Bobby Babbitt of the Buffalo Bills, I mean, but how did you get into the league in the first place? The obvious joke here is like when the Sean McDermott's son joined the staff 10 years from now. Is that the time?
Yeah, he's just going to be around the team. Yeah. We got to start seeing him around the team. I don't know. We'll see. But, yeah, I just saw – when I saw Norv back in the fray with the Raiders, I'm like, oh. And then I looked at the coaching staff. I'm like, wait a minute. These are all like retread names and former players that really haven't had any sort of track record of success. So good luck with that with Norv. I'm sure you've got some answers now. Trade deadline day. As we're now 10 minutes past the deadline. Not seeing anything cross my feed here in terms of the Buffalo Bills and any movement here by Brandon Beane at the last minute. Another thing that we could discuss today, Gino, as we look ahead to Week 10, the Buffalo Bills traveling to Indianapolis, and we know that there's still a lot of football that's going to be played. And we heard some MVP chants for Josh Allen on Sunday. They're going to get louder and louder by the day, and Lamar Jackson, of course, will have something to say about that as he's looking for his third. Here's a date that I want NFL fans and Bills fans to circle. November 17th. That's the Sunday that the Bills host the Chiefs. That's also the Sunday that the Ravens go to Pittsburgh. The quarterback that shows up that day between those four teams, and I'm not including Russell Wilson because he missed too much at the beginning of the season, that quarterback will then become the front runner for MVP headed into Thanksgiving. So it'll either be Allen, Mahomes, or Jackson, depending on their play on November 17th. And all that said, Jared Goff might end up winning it. The dark horse from a team that no one is talking about who could actually emerge, and you could hear some chatter around. Keep an eye on what Justin Herbert does here with the Chargers, because if they beat the Bengals, Ravens, and Chiefs down the stretch, he's going to enter in the conversation as well. But if you want Josh Allen, if you're saying Josh Allen needs to be MVP, it's that day that you have to circle, because if he outperforms Lamar Jackson and Patrick Mahomes, if he gets a win against the Chiefs and looks better on that day, and let's say the Steelers somehow beat the Ravens at home, yeah, those chants are going to get really loud.
I think it's just as simple as who's the number one seed in the AFC, because if you say Jared Goff, and look, I think it's a fair conversation. Would you take the Lions or the field in the NFC? It's not easy discussion, is it? Like, that seems, well, look, I mean, Jared Goff's doing good things, but that is a sound roster. What's the competition in the NFC? It's not as top heavy as it is in the AFC between the Chiefs and the Ravens. So whoever ends up on top, that's why Lamar Jackson won the MVP. Let's call it for what it is. Last year, they were the number one seed. They won the most games in the better of the two conferences. And if where you say the front runner danger, like, yeah, but obviously wait and see what the standings are at the end of the season there.
Yeah,
for that, it's okay to like players on different teams.
Tell me.
Well, I asked this question to you last week, Danger, and I said, hey, if there's one player that's not on the Bears or Bills you like watching, who is that? Fred Warner of the Niners. Hey, you know what?
Love that
Good
guy.
answer. I came up to this conclusion watching Pat Ricard, Project Pat of the Ravens. I love a guy like that, a 300 guy that can move. I have another player that I would like to add to my list, because I don't get to watch this team that often, but give me some Vita Vea of the Buccaneers. My God, those arms are like tree trunks.
Yeah.
Here's the thing I like most about him, and something that hardly anybody does anymore. No gloves.
Yeah.
Wet night in Kansas City, no gloves. Watch, Vita Vea, intimidating. I don't need these gloves. It's like a monster chasing after you.
Yeah, and if you have been unplugged for the last 24 hours, the Chiefs remain undefeated, getting the win at home in that rain against the Buccaneers. Man, I got to tell you, Gino, I don't want to go through my life hating anything or anyone, but fatigue on the Kansas City Chiefs right now, it's approaching an all-time high, because it's become so predictable, and every outcome always feels like it goes their way. I'm not blaming the refs. I'm not blaming anything about last night, because I don't think there was anything.
Todd Bowles, though? Can we blame him? That wasn't the same situation as the Dolphin game. Okay, there's a minute 20 when the Dolphins tied the game. Or, okay, do we kick the extra point to tie, or do we go for two? Well, if you go for two, Buffalo's still getting the ball back, and they could still kick the field goal. Irrelevant.
I didn't
How
like
much time? 20-ish seconds.
I didn't
last
like
night?
them.
Yeah.
I didn't like them calling the timeout when they got down to the one. I thought they had enough time there where they could have milked more clock, and they could have done whatever they wanted to. They could have run the ball then instead of trying to get it to the end zone. Neither here nor there, because they end up tying the game in leaving enough time for Patrick Mahomes to do something. He didn't this time. He didn't, orchestrate a drive with 28 seconds to get the Chiefs the win in regulation. Instead, it goes to overtime. But I mean, as soon as they win the toss, I'm like, well, they're not going to stop them. I mean, these guys are just going to go down the field, score a touchdown, game over, and the Bucs aren't even going to see the ball in overtime. And there's your outcome, and the Chiefs get over again. And to bring up Vita Vea and to bring up the Bucs, like, they're scrappy. There's something about the way Baker Mayfield plays that I just absolutely love. It's like a reckless abandon. It's a I don't care. I'm going to put my body on the line. And knowing that this is a guy that doesn't have a lot of size, it doesn't matter, man. The guy is just gritty. I kind of dig the way Mayfield has been playing for the Bucs.
Yeah, I love their backfield. Okay, give me who are we bringing out today? Bucky Irving, come on down.
So good.
And then also, we lost Evans and we don't have Godwin anymore. Sterling Shepard, have the game of your life here, buddy.
Cade Otton's nice.
Cade Otton, yeah.
They got a lot of players, and they are this team that we forgot they beat Detroit earlier this year. For as much as we want to praise the Lions, the Bucs got over on them. They're tough, man. They're a tough team, and they gave the Chiefs all they could handle. But I like that what you're saying there. Hey, go for two, you coward. What do you think is going to happen? I mean, look, you gave Mahomes enough time where they could probably get it downfield and get that field goal if they really need to get the win. But you're not going to beat the Chiefs playing conservative. You're not going to beat the Chiefs kicking field goals. If you have the opportunity to bury them. Go for it. Maybe it just entered into his mind that there's still a lot of football left to be played, and the season isn't on the line right now. If you're going to lose, we'll take our chances with a coin flip in overtime.
This would be a good time to play because it segues nicely. Who's hot and who's cold in fantasy football, Danger?
Okay.
Who's cold? I'm going to tell you about this receiver. He's only got one touchdown since week one. Had 2 touchdowns week one. Overall in the season, 19 receptions, 39 targets, 235 yards over 8 games. Oh, and their team just traded for another wide receiver. I'm giving you the stats of Xavier Worthy.
Wow.
Xavier Worthy last night, that's a pretty basic play. Get both feet down. That was just sloppy there.
Well, let me tell you something. As somebody who maybe placed a prop bet on Xavier Worthy to have over half a yard rushing, to see a reverse end up in a 10-yard loss. Yeah, I'm a little down on Xavier Worthy, a little cold on Xavier Worthy.
A 10-yard loss, there was an arm tackle.
Yeah.
Like, okay, that's
for the life of me, I will never understand just how the Kansas City Chiefs let Keon Coleman slip by them at that point of the draft. I mean, it's general manager malpractice in the NFL. I can't believe Brett Veach would do such a thing to his Chiefs.
We'll talk later this hour to Michael F. Florio. And it's been a weird year for tight ends, but I'm going to give you a tight end danger last 2 games, okay? 2 weeks ago, 7 catches, 73 yards. Okay, that'll help. This past week, 5 catches, 100 yards, and 2 scores. And they're coming off a short week, and T. Higgins isn't going to be there. Look at Mike Gesicki.
Wow.
If he's on your waiver wire.
Okay.
He is hot.
Yeah. I, as somebody who tried to be the smartest guy in the room on draft night for fantasy football, I was like, I'm going to take T.J. Hawkinson and stash him on my bench until he's ready to play. Well, he's out there. He's ready to play, and I'm going to wait for that big T.J. Hawkinson game now we've got time to deploy Hawkinson.
You know when it'll happen? When he's on your bench.
Yeah.
That's the way it works.
Yeah. Of course. Who's hot and who's cold in fantasy football? It's brought to you each week by AirQuip Heating and Air Conditioning. It's fun and challenging to know when to start a player that's heating up or bench one who's cooling off. It's not fun to be too hot or too cold in your home or business. Make the best lineup call you can and call AirQuip today. We'll talk more fantasy football with Michael F. Florio from NFL Network. Yeah, our buddy F is going to join us here a little bit before 5 o'clock. Now, the Rochester Americans are hot. 4 straight wins. They're traveling to Cleveland. They're going to take on the Monsters tomorrow night here on the Fan Rochester. And today we're getting word that the Sabres have once again loaned Yuri Kulik down to Rochester. So Kulik back in the lineup for the Amerks here. He's not really getting a lot of ice time with the parent club, apparently.
Yeah, we'll get to that in a second, but... please hit this breaking news.
Ow! It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far.
All right, so I'm not sure if we can connect the dots, but just 10 minutes ago, the Dallas Cowboys announced they're releasing former Buffalo Bill Jordan Phillips. Phillips then just minutes ago on his Insta put a picture of him making a play in Buffalo with just the caption, "Run it back." So does this mean he's coming back to Buffalo? Or does this mean this is what he wants? Again, the Bills, when it comes to these situations, Danger, they lean to the guys they know. We've seen guys
For
like
sure.
Shaq Lawson. Heck, this would be the 3rd tour of duty for Jordan Phillips.
Yeah, it would. That's interesting. Maybe it's something he wants. I think more that they're maybe more in need of, well, I shouldn't say that. They rotate guys all the time, but have you been disappointed in the play of Eli Ankou? I haven't. I mean, I think he's been a nice surprise when he's been active.
He is a wide body.
Yeah.
Like, I would give him more. Give him a little more than Austin Johnson.
Right. That's interesting. We'll keep tabs on that as we wait to see if there's anything official to come from what's left of the trade deadline here, now passing 20 minutes ago. We check in with Amerks head coach Mike Leone next, and we preview tomorrow night's action that you'll hear on the Fan Rochester from Cleveland as the Amerks take on the Monsters. Mike Leone next on the Fan.
Sports Update.
NFL trade deadline passing at 4 o'clock right now. It appears the Bills did not make a move today in terms of a trade. The Bills today, though, did release safety Mike Edwards. Edwards had asked to be traded. Dan Orlovsky, ESPN, on the Colts offense.
You're going to get a bevy of play-action pass, a ton, and Joe is going to throw the ball into parties. Like Joe's wildly aggressive, wildly confident, and he's capable of it. The number one person you have to stop is Josh Downs.
Bills and Colts, 1 o'clock this coming Sunday. Tre'Davious White got dealt today. He goes from the Rams to the Ravens. Other trades today included Mike Williams going from the Jets to the Steelers. Marshawn Lattimore goes from the Saints to the Commanders. Yuri Kulik has been loaned to the Amerks. We'll talk to Amerks head coach Mike Leone next. Sabres tonight host Ottawa. Our coverage will begin at 7. Gene Battaglia, the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
Straight up with no chaser. You're in the sports bar with Danger and Battaglia on the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan, Rochester.
Leo!
Yeah.
Coach Mike Leone from the Rochester Americans. Joining us from the road, the team in Cleveland and riding a 4-game winning streak. How's that feel, Coach?
It's great. We actually we just got here with the bus right now, but team's playing really good. I think obviously the first we talked about it the first weekend. Couple weekends we probably didn't get rewarded for how we were playing, and it's nice to see the guys' hard work pay off.
Tell us about the weekend in Utica, Coach. You put up 8 on Friday night. That's a Utica team that might be pressing, doing anything they can to get a win, and you guys found a way on Saturday when you knew Utica had to do everything they could. Your thoughts on getting all the points you could possibly in Utica this past weekend?
Yeah, I think anytime you can sweep in any league, it's really difficult to do, especially with a team that was desperate to win a hockey game. I thought really liked our second and third period in the first night, and you never know how games are going to go, but we got into penalty trouble. We were down a forward, but at the course of the season, you're going to have to find ways to win games where you're not at your best, and we did a great job with that.
Rochester Americans head coach Michael Leone, our guest in the sports bar, Danger and Battaglia, and we got word from the Sabres that a familiar name has been loaned to your team, Coach, Yuri Kulik. How's he going to fit into this lineup? What are your thoughts?
Obviously, he's a really talented player. He's been a really good player in this league for the last couple of years. We're really excited to get him. He could really shoot the puck. Obviously, helps our power play, get in a one-time threat like that, and we're excited to see him in the lineup.
Have you talked to him yet, Coach? Like he's somebody that, taking the news that he's coming back to Rochester, just seeing how mentally he is prepared here.
Yeah, I had him a little bit at the rookie tournament. Anytime a player gets sent down, but I think he's excited to play. We picked him up on the way, and he'll be in the lineup tomorrow.
Very good. And, of course, we know that there's a bit of a history there with some of the players that he's played with as well. Will we see some sort of chemistry with Kulik and Roseanne? I'm knowing how well those guys play off each other.
I think that's the plan right now. We'll get together as a staff, and obviously they've had a lot of chemistry in the last couple seasons, and most likely you'll see them together.
We're talking to Amerks head coach Mike Leone. Amerks in Cleveland tomorrow night, as will be Andrew Mossbrooks on the call. We'll have that. It's not too often you get a 32-year-old in the American League, but I love the story of the house cat. Michael Hauser just kind of being the backstop for your team. Coach, your thoughts on this? And, I mean, it is a developmental league after all. So, is this kind of sustainable having Hauser here for the foreseeable future leading your team?
Yeah. We have 2 goalies right now that are doing a great job. He's been a journeyman in pro hockey, and he's done an unbelievable job for us. He made a couple really big saves in the third period, and you never know what could happen throughout the course of the season. But we have two guys right now that are playing great, and House brings a lot of energy and enthusiasm to the rink every day. The players love him, and he's a fun guy to be around. I lean on him a lot. I think he has just a really good feel of the room, and he's seen been in a lot of the locker rooms, and we're grateful to have him.
Michael Leone, Rochester Americans head coach, our guest here in the Sports Bar, and we next see the Amerks at home coming up Friday night at Blue Cross Arena. Hartford Wolfpack coming in, Coach, and I know you're a one-game-at-a-time guy. I'm curious as to what you know about the Wolfpack here for fans locally that may be listening and looking forward to that matchup on Friday night.
Yeah, they're off to a really good start in this season. They have a lot of talented young prospects. They're really good defensively. They're good on the special teams. Was actually watching them the last couple of days. It should be a really good test for our group come Friday.
Michael Leone in Cleveland. What do you do on your off night here in Cleveland, Coach? Are you guys going to get a little?
We actually got a big steak dinner tonight with the team. So it'll be with staff team. It's our first time on the road the day before where we can kind of get together as a group, and I think these things are really important. So a couple hours will be at a steakhouse.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that because I think that opinion varies from coach to coach as far as how much you believe off-ice bonding and activities mean towards the building of a culture, the building of a solid locker room. Your pro outings, team outings, when you have the opportunity to do them like you have tonight?
Yeah, no, I think they're really important. It's such a long season. You want to make sure that the guys are professionals. They get paid to play a sport, but there's also a human element to it where I think those things are really important to be connected as a group, and guys share a lot of laughs. And I really enjoy going on the road. Obviously, it's great to play at home, but I think these moments are really important throughout the course of the season, especially, playing really good hockey. The group's energized. It's a really fun group to be around. A lot of guys have been around each other before I got here. So we're excited to get together tonight and put on a good performance tomorrow.
Amerks look to make it 5 in a row tomorrow night. Cleveland is the opponent. And, Coach, before we let you go, I don't root for other NFL teams, but I'm happy for Friends, and you're a new friend of the show. Are you starting to have grand ideas of like the Lions taking the next step and getting to a place that they haven't been?
Yeah, I told Tim Kennedy, who's on the development staff, and we're good buddies, and I said if he's a huge Bills fan, obviously, so I told him if they make it, we're going.
Oh, if there's a Bills-Lions, if it's a Bills-Lions Super Bowl, New Orleans won't survive. I mean, the fan bases that are so thirsty for their first Super Bowl will descend upon that city, and there will be nothing left but ruin by the time the game is over.
Yeah, that was especially for it was close last year for all Detroit fans, but now that was a big one in Green Bay. A lot of people didn't know about the weather conditions because they're in the dome, but Dan Campbell had them ready to go.
This lines up. I'm like, there's no way you could do that. You don't play on a Saturday night before the Super Bowl? You don't play on Super Bowl Sunday? Coach, the stars are aligning.
I saw that. I don't know if I can afford that trip.
Mike Leone making plans for New Orleans with his Detroit Lions here in the middle of February. Well, Coach, safe travels. Glad you made it there okay. Have a fun time tonight with the boys, and we're looking forward to hearing the action tomorrow night from Cleveland here on the Fan Rochester, and seeing y'all back on home ice Friday night against Hartford.
All right. Thanks a lot, guys. Appreciate it. Have a good night.
You too. Bye. Thanks, Mike.
Mike Leone, Rochester Americans head coach. Red hot right now. 4 straight wins, albeit against teams that are below them in the standings right now. I mean, you look at it's early in the season for sure, and I'm not going to put too much stock in it, but the Amerks doing what good teams should do, which is beating up on inferior opponents.
Well, just look at it this way. They have to be ahead of 3 teams not to be in the postseason, right? That's kind of the way it works. There are 8 teams actually only 7 teams in this division. Forgive me. I'm thinking of the other one. Utica has yet to win a game. They played 9 so far. Cleveland is right behind the Amerks. So everybody in this division, and this isn't BS overtime losses, they're all pretty much in there right now. So it's a very balanced division with the exception right now of Utica.
You're getting Yuri Kulik back. It's big. It's big for the Amerks.
It's big. Is he ready to say, what am I doing here? It's weird to me how they didn't give him a shot in Buffalo. It's weird to me, and this tells me kind of part of it too. His name is pronounced Kulik.
Kulich.
Kulik.
Yeah.
Kulik.
Well, that was on opening night. I'm like, all right, I'll give him a pass. And it felt like between periods, opening night, somebody must have got to the guys because it changed from Kulich to Kulik.
Yeah.
And
then it's not one individual doing that though. It's multiple. It's like he's really good. Give him a chance. But if you don't even know what his name is, well, that tells me.
I think that him being sent down tells you all you really need to know. That he is really good, but he's not NHL ready just yet. I don't know what gets him NHL ready, except for maybe more seasoning with the Amerks. And we keep talking about trying to turn a losing culture around into a winning culture, and you've got some of those guys certainly up with Seth Appert and Lindy Ruff at the parent club. But the Amerks need to win something. I would love to see them win something and kind of continue to gain that experience at the AHL level before they go up to the parent club. And maybe that's exactly what the plan is here for Kulik. Be a part of something special as he joins the team here on a 4-game winning streak in Cleveland tomorrow night. The action here on your proud home of Rochester Americans hockey, 95.7 The Fan, Rochester.
What do we make of this Jordan Phillips story? He doesn't have to clear waivers. He's a veteran. He could sign anywhere.
I don't know. I mean, if the Bills are making that move, is he a part of that rotation? I suppose. He knows the defense. He knows a lot of the pieces. Am I excited about it? No. I'm not excited about a guy who is, according to Pro Football Focus, ranked last against the run as a defensive tackle.
Think the move there is obvious. It's Eli Anku. Eli Anku should be the guy that, okay, you only have one more time you could promote him, so make him part of the 53.
I think he's earned it. I mean, he's been impactful when he's had his opportunities, which was kind of surprising to me. Like, it took me a little bit. I'm like, wait a minute, who's this 51 that's out there making plays?
He's huge.
He's just out there making plays. I'm like, yeah, get him on the active. Let's go. I would be more excited about that than, and we love Jordan Phillips. Great dude. Loved having him in Buffalo.
He was one of those characters when things started to turn around for the better. We'll always remember him just doing the Zeke Elliott feed me on Thanksgiving.
But this would be his third time coming back to Buffalo.
Correct.
Yeah.
First time he left for big money for Arizona, kind of washed out there. All right, come back here, revived his career, washed out with the Giants, now washed out with the Cowboys.
I'm good. I don't think we need him. I don't know if anything will be official or if they're actually going to make a move to bring him back, or if this is just Jordan Phillips getting released saying, you know what I would love, and putting it on his Instagram.
Right. I don't know how anybody's kind of connecting the dots.
Nobody has officially reported that this has happened. A lot of people are putting it out there saying, well, according to Jordan Phillips, he's coming back to the Bills. He just said run it back. That's what he said. He didn't say he's going to run it back or he's been approached by the Buffalo Bills. If it happens, fine. Nice story. I don't know how impactful he's going to be. If it doesn't happen, we're good. I'm fine with that. I think you do better than bringing back a guy for his third time, his third tour of duty with the team. That would be something. We're going to take a quick break here.
I wish I was kind of like at that steak dinner tonight, right?
We got a little bit jealous. Yeah, they're all at a steakhouse. I had a great steak on Saturday night. Oh, I hadn't gone out for a steak in a while, because they just throw them in the backyard, put them on the smoker, do a little reverse sear. Delicious.
I try to tell you there are things in life that are worth spending money on. Going out to eat is one of them. Let somebody else make the moves. Support the local business.
Yeah, no, for sure. And we did, and it was fantastic. So yeah, I'm a little bit jealous of the crew that gets to hang out at the steakhouse as a team, enjoy a steak dinner. And a night out before they take the ice tomorrow night. That sounds like a lot of fun. And look, good for Coach Leone. We had Seth Appert on with us last year. I was like, No, we're not going to do anything like that. We're not going to go to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. We're not gonna...
which is fine.
Maybe he did a team dinner
like,
and he didn't talk about it, but whatever it was, to hear your coach, as Leone is enthusiastic as he is, they're playing good hockey. We're on a heater. Let's have some fun.
Should I text Mossbrooks and like, hey, do you eat steak?
Puts ketchup on it. Oh no, I'm sorry, that's red sauce. He wouldn't put red sauce on that. What would he put on his steak? 57 sauce.
Yeah, A1.
Yeah.
As a kid, I loved A1, but now I'm like, well, no,
as a kid, I put A1 on everything my mom cooked because, well, my mom cooked it. Now, if you do it right, if you cook it right, you don't need a steak sauce. You just enjoy that steak. Moss Brooks, he's getting white pasta. He's just getting bow ties with butter and oil.
In a weird way, this is the sign of acceptance if we're kind of goofing on
we
here.
love you, man.
That's it. Like,
you'll hear Moss Brooks on the call tomorrow night here on the Fan Rochester. Puck drop just after 7 o'clock as the Amerks are in Cleveland to take on the Monsters. Next on the Fan, we talk fantasy football from the NFL Network. Our buddy F. That's Michael F. Florio stopping by, and we'll talk about some of these trade deadline moves that might have some fantasy relevance and other pickups you might want to make for your waiver wire heading into Week 10 next on the Fan.
You're listening to the Sports Bar. 7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
The NFL's trade deadline has come and gone, and at 4 o'clock, we now kind of have a better sense of who is landing where, some of these names that might impact your fantasy season. We'll talk to Michael F. Florio from NFL Network, who's joining us now. The Bills at 7-2. We're feeling good about that. Not really making any moves here before the trade deadline. You got Amari Cooper earlier, obviously, and that's not a zero. But are you surprised that Brandon Beane didn't make a move, especially when you consider some of the injuries at wide receiver, for another wide receiver, maybe even a defensive lineman?
I thought if they were to go any route, it would be more on the defensive side of the ball. But I personally am not shocked. Beane is not someone who tends to make huge in-season moves. I will admit I was a little surprised when they made the move for Amari Cooper. I was hopeful that they would make another move, but it was a very quiet deadline, as it tends to be in the NFL. Like, it's not like baseball or basketball. The deadline always gets hyped, and then we get some minor moves usually on the day of, but I'll take it, all things considered. But with them releasing Mike Edwards, my hope of maybe one day seeing my favorite defensive player of all time, Micah Hyde, come back is not dead yet.
Yeah, Michael, we were talking about that. There's a lot of angles to that, and the Bills still do have those 2 roster spots open, so something's got to happen here before now in the Colts game. Speaking of this game here, if we could start from a fantasy perspective about Bills-Colts here, because James Cook is a guy that certainly was one of the top 10 running backs drafted, I would think, in most leagues. But now you have the emergence of Ray Davis. Showed it in that Monday night game against the Jets. Showed it with catching that pass against the Dolphins, helping that win. Is Ray Davis an RB2 that you should consider now, Michael?
He is someone that I want on my rosters because like you said, we have seen it now a couple of games. It was awesome to see what he did this past week, but most of his production did come on that one long catch and run. He still was very behind Cook in snaps and touches, so I still believe this is James Cook's backfield. I wouldn't be starting Ray Davis in fantasy, although I had to in a pinch last week, and that really came through. It is a good matchup. The Colts have struggled against the run this year, but until we see more consistent usage, I think you could get away from Ray Davis, but I do believe we are going to see more and more of Davis as the year progresses, not only as we get into the cold weather, and you guys know about that better than me, but Sean McDermott and co. over the years have kind of slow played their rookies, especially early on in the season. So I do think it's possible Davis could get standalone value, and he is always an injury away from being top 20, which is why I want him on my team. But I don't think you need to go and start him just yet.
Mike, at the trade deadline, we saw the Steelers make a move for Mike Williams from the New York Jets, and just kind of seeing how that offense looks with Russell Wilson in command versus what it looked like with Justin Fields makes me believe that if Mike Williams is out there, that might be somebody worth rostering, and doesn't he just kind of slide into the wide receiver 2 position there automatically in Pittsburgh behind Pickens?
You would think so because they've been searching for someone all year. Like Van Jefferson hasn't really worked out. I do think this is a better real-life move for the Steelers than it is for fantasy, but the arrow is pointing up for Mike Williams, who was just buried on the Jets' depth chart as of late. So, yeah, Wilson, I think Williams will still be big, boom or bust with Wilson, big play reliant, potentially hoping for like a deep touchdown or something like that. But it can't get any worse than it has been in New York. So if you want to take a flyer on him off the waiver wire, see what it looks like, I think you'd have to give him at least a couple of weeks because we've seen a lot of wide receivers traded on a Tuesday, and on Sunday they tend to play about a third of the snaps. So don't think you want to start Williams this week. But just if you want to take an upside flyer, see if he has anything left in the tank and if he could be anything here, it's definitely fine to do so.
Michael, this is a week that would be good to get the NFL ticket or go out to some watering hole because if you're sitting at home, most of the nation is going to get Philadelphia and Dallas. Quite honestly, a game that I have no interest in now without Dak Prescott. Is there anything salvageable on the Cowboys from a fantasy perspective in this game, would you say?
It's rough. Look, if CD Lamb ends up playing by some chance, I still think you have to play him. Because of just who he is and the upside that he brings. But outside of that, like Jake Ferguson might be just a pure volume play. We saw him have a lot of targets last week. And the thing is, like, Cooper Rush kept the Cowboys afloat 2 years ago where they won, I believe they won all of his starts, but he averaged less than 200 yards per game, 1 touchdown per game. It really, and that's when they had better receivers, a better O-line, just a better situation all around. So I think at least for this week, until we see any of these guys do it outside of CeeDee Lamb without Dak Prescott, I think it's fine to just avoid your Cowboys right now.
Michael, if you may, I would like to step into the fantasy football confessional for a moment and confess one of my sins, and you can chastise me, and this has relevance to last night's game in Kansas City. I was somebody who in one of my leagues drafted DeAndre Hopkins just for depth.
No.
I left him on my bench. He didn't see the starting lineup for any part of the beginning of the season until it came down to it. I'm like, you know what? I'm moving off of him. He's not doing anything in Tennessee. I can't remember who I dropped him for in exchange on the waiver wire. And of course, a smarter fantasy manager than I went ahead and picked him up off the waiver wire immediately. He gets traded in Kansas City. A couple things I want to find out from you, Mike. I mean, for anybody that says that Hopkins was washed, coming into Kansas City sure seems like it's been one hell of a deodorant for his career, and he's going to be just fine with Patrick Mahomes throwing him the ball. And the other sin I would like to confess is I continue to start Jared Goff in a one-quarterback league over Baker Mayfield. And for whatever reason, I just look at matchups and I think to myself, I can't see Mayfield doing what he does, yet Mayfield continues to produce even without his top wide receivers. Is Baker Mayfield matchup proof at this point?
It's starting to look like it because yesterday was one of the toughest matchups for a quarterback with the Chiefs. There's no Chris Godwin. There's no Mike Evans. Doesn't matter. He goes out there. He has got Cade Otton, his running back, Sterling, the ghost of Sterling Shepard, and he is still productive. He scored 18 fantasy points last night. That is the most a quarterback has scored against the Chiefs since Lamar Jackson in week 1. Like, it is, Baker, it's hard to say he's not because he did it in such a tough matchup. This week he gets the 49ers, so not the easiest matchup there, but it's starting to look like he's real matchup proof, although I will say I do like Jared Goff this week a lot. Last week, outdoor game in the rains, that's not where Jared Goff shines. But for DeAndre Hopkins, I don't think D-Hop is anywhere close to what he was in his prime, but I still think he is a very good wide receiver. And the thing is, the Chiefs, they keep talking about using him in this Rashee Rice role that we also saw Juju have a really big game in playing that role. A lot of yak comes from that. And the crazy part about yesterday is he didn't have all that much yak. A lot of it came on that one deep catch, 2 red zone catches. He is going to be their go-to guy in the red zone. He could still win deep, as we saw, and then I anticipate a lot more yak coming his way. So, DeAndre Hopkins is quickly looking like a player that you just throw in your lineup and you leave in there. Will he elevate the other Chiefs? That is still to be determined because Mahomes struggled even when he had Rice fantasy-wise. But arrow is definitely pointing up for the Chiefs right now after the last 2 games.
We're talking to Michael F. Florio from the NFL Network, where, Michael, here in Western New York, we are just living in a golden age. The Bills at 7-2 with this massive lead, 4 games over the New York Jets. But, hey, when we last saw Aaron Rodgers, there he was telling Al Michaels and Herb Street, we can run the table. And, okay, like to see that. I look at the betting line in this game, like, wait a second, Arizona's home. They're only favored by 1. There's a lot of people that are going on the Jets. The Jets in nice conditions in Arizona. Do we like that offense to finally figure it out this week, or do you need to see something here first to trust Aaron Rodgers and his staff?
I would argue that you could make a case that they started to figure it out last week when Rodgers threw for 3 touchdowns against a tough Texans defense, a defense that we saw Josh Allen struggle with, although they're not as healthy as they were then. I don't think the Jets are going to win out, but something I have been saying is I think we are going to – remember in Green Bay, Aaron Rodgers would always do this where he would tell people to relax and stuff, and then the Packers would get hot and go on a run. I think something like that is coming for the Jets because not only do they get the Cardinals, then they get the Colts, the Seahawks, Dolphins, Jaguars. The next 4 or 5 games, very winnable for them. Basically, if the Bills beat them, the division is there, so I'm not worried from a Bills fan standpoint.
But I do think we get one last Aaron Rodgers, Devontae Adams run here, and I do like them this week. Kyler Murray has been struggling. Marvin Harrison Jr. has been struggling. But this is going to come down to the Jets defense and if they're able to stop the run game of Arizona, stuff like that. But, yeah, I think we get one more Aaron Rodgers run. It just ends up falling short, and that's kind of how he goes out then as a Jet.
I was kind of surprised to see that the biggest over-under on the board actually is the Thursday night game between the Ravens and the Bengals. Those short week games, usually lower scoring affairs, but you see both of these offenses, and I guess you could understand why you would have that over-under. And, you know, we could talk more about some of the guys that you're targeting on your waiver wire for pickups, but the Bengals specifically in their backfield, losing Zach Moss, now have Khalil Herbert. Do you expect that he will be a contributor in some way, shape, or form?
I think Khalil Herbert is a lot like Ray Davis, what I was saying earlier, someone that you want on your roster because if Chase Brown was to go down or with an injury or something like that, suddenly he is the starter on a good Bengals offense. And I believe that Khalil Herbert is a good talent, especially as a runner. So there will be fantasy value there. But as long as Chase Brown is healthy, I think that's kind of what Herbert is for fantasy because best case scenario, in my opinion, is he plays the Zach Moss role. And we have already seen Chase Brown take over as the lead back there. He's been playing more snaps, getting more carries, more targets than Zach Moss. Herbert could carve out a large enough role like Moss had where he gets something like 8 to 12 touches and he has potential like flex value in a deeper league or something like that. But I'm a Chase Brown guy. I'm very excited for the future with Chase Brown. And that is who I'm most excited about on this Bengals backfield.
Michael, is there any chance the NFL Network is going to send you to Western New York here for a stretch run here to take in one of these games?
Probably not in season. Playoffs would be my best hope. But the Bills need 2-3 more wins to guarantee a home playoff game this year. So chances are looking good right now.
Yeah, gotta like it. Mike, what are you working on at NFL Network, and what can we catch out here as we prepare to set our waiver claims in for tonight?
Yeah, I've been plugging away the last 2 days at Stardom Sit-em for the week. That'll drop tomorrow morning on NFL.com, and then NFL Fantasy Live the next few days, the Insiders, and as always, Roto-Baller as well. I do work over there, and I have a podcast with them called Florio's Football Show. And if you want it all in one place, Twitter, Instagram, socials, at Michael at Florio.
Michael, always appreciate your time. You make us smarter fantasy football players. Thanks so much for it today.
Appreciate it. Go Bills.
Go Bills. There he is, Michael F. Florio, NFL Network, talking some fantasy football. Get your waivers in, your waiver claims in for tonight. Week 10 gets underway Thursday with the Bengals traveling to M&T Bank Stadium to take on the Ravens.
Yeah, that's okay. We got a good Thursday night game here. Thank you. Baseball season's over. Give me something that I can look forward to. Why isn't the NBA playing tonight?
Election night.
I know. But some of us use sports as an escape, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe I just watch, I'm just saying, some of us.
So are you surprised that a league that has as much load management as they do uses election night as an excuse to not work?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 11 games in the National Hockey League, and they're not all in Canada tonight.
No. Yeah, no. I don't have an answer for you.
I don't.
I know that
most polls close in the early evening anyway.
One year they probably said, it'd be a good idea. Let's take the night off so that we can all vote because it's important, and it is, and you should. But yeah, no NBA action tonight because of election night.
Ooh, we have breaking news from the NBA.
Ow! It really hit me. I didn't know it was coming back that far.
Joel Embiid has been suspended 3 games. This for shoving the columnist of the Philadelphia Inquirer. This is coming down from the NBA, not from the team.
Oh, who cares?
He's not playing anyway, so what is that?
I'm so over it.
He's probably
man.
oh, good.
I'm just so over it.
Oh, who cares?
He's such a good player when he's on the court. He really is. I mean, to see a big man do the things that he does, to have the touch that he has, he is. It's so maddening to me that he's just not out there. That he's, that all of this is going on. I don't like any of it. And if it truly is he's not healthy, he's not 100%, he can't go. Okay. Can we get him out there sooner rather than later? What are we talking about here? Because he was fine just a few months ago in the Olympics, and nothing has happened since then.
Mutual respect is paramount to the relationship between players and media in the NBA.
God.
While we understand Joel was offended by the personal nature of the original version of the column, interactions must remain professional on both sides and can never turn physical. I don't know why I did this in a Kermit the Frog voice, but
That's your Adam Silver.
it's actually Joe Dumars in a statement. But just whatever.
Yeah. I'm kind of done with statements. We don't see any more. We're not seeing as many statements, are we? Feels like statements are kind of being pared back a little bit. Less statements.
I'm fine with that.
Oh, yeah, I am.
Yeah.
I am too. That's why when I hear this, I'm like, yeah, whatever. Take your statement and shove it up your ass. I'm done with statements. I'm really done with them. Here's a statement from the Okay, good. Thank you for that statement.
Again, what are NBA fans supposed to do tonight, particularly on the East Coast? You already voted. And you're just going to go watch hockey now. You're going to
because NBA fans and hockey fans, there's a big crossover there between the NBA fan and the hockey fan, right? I know a lot of NBA fans who can't wait to watch the Sabres tonight. Come on.
No,
to answer your question, I don't know what NBA fans are supposed to do tonight. I really don't know. I don't know when they thought it was a good idea to just take the night off because of election night or it was some kind of symbolic gesture. We're not working on election night, so you can go out and vote.
Yeah.
You're not working most nights.
Well, that is my point here, Danger. It's like every network, go out and vote. Go out and vote. Vote. No S. No kidding.
Really?
Yes. And if the game is normally tipping off at 8 o'clock, oh my gosh, it's 7:59. I forgot.
By the way,
go vote.
can I get a verdict on this move? Because my buddy told me about this, and I'm like, yeah, that's probably the move of the weekend. He recorded all of the NFL action that he wanted to watch on Sunday so he could watch it, not in real time, watch it on his own time, and skip through all the political ads. He wanted to skip through all of the political ads. Not one more political ad. I'm done. No more. It's Sunday before Election Day. Everybody knows. I'm done with all of it. I'm skipping through all the commercials, and I'm just watching football. No more political ads.
Well, that's good, but it's not going to solve your problem because now we're just going to go from that to Jennifer Hudson singing about whatever she wants you to buy in a holiday jingle.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I've seen that. I'm like,
yeah.
No.
The Christmas commercials already are whatever. I'm kind of numb to it. Thanksgiving just doesn't get its due. We've talked about this. I mean, it's just a forgotten holiday now, and I don't like it. I'm not a fan of that at all. Oh, my goodness, it's happy hour. We've got to take a break. We're going to come back. We have more on the way. The trade deadline in the NFL has passed about an hour and change ago, and we'll recap everything that happened around the NFL, not including the Buffalo Bills. They did not, as of right now, from what we've heard, they did not make a move at the trade deadline. We would have heard of something by now, and Schefter putting out his list of all the players that were moved during the trade deadline. So I have some reason to believe that there's some finality there and that we won't see any last minute moves.
Kind of agree with you.
Now that we're an hour past the deadline. So we'll get to that. We'll recap everything that happened here at the NFL's trade deadline next on The Fan.
You're listening to the 950 The Fan Rochester, an Odyssey sports station.
The Fan Rochester Sports Update.
The trade deadline comes and goes, and the Bills did not make a move today in terms of a trade. They did, however, release safety Mike Edwards. This was at his request. Chris Brown offering his thoughts.
There hasn't been any definitive reason on it. I don't believe it is a physical skill issue. I mean, for all we know, it could be a personality match issue. We don't know. But I think he's certainly capable of playing the position. For whatever reason, he was not deemed a match.
With that, the Bills have 2 roster spots open. Officially, the team putting Dawon Smoot on IR today. Trades today in the NFL. Former Buffalo Bill Tre'Davious White gets dealt from the Rams to the Ravens. Wide receiver Mike Williams goes from the Jets to the Steelers. Marshawn Lattimore, the defensive back from the Saints to the Commanders. Sabres hockey tonight. Buffalo hosting Ottawa. Our coverage will begin at 7. Gene Battaglia and the sports leader, the Fan Rochester.
The Sports Bar with Danger and Battaglia.
I always think of the Colts as a pretty good team, and then they have not been great. There's a real chance here that Joe Flacco could bounce back and play a lot better next week. But the state right now is chaotic. I also think they're miscalculating the roster and how good it is, because in playing Joe Flacco, they're also telling you, well, we have a playoff caliber team right now, and we're going to capitalize on that with a veteran that we feel better in. And the Colts to me are not there.
Mike Danger.
I think there are elements of the Colts to worry about. The biggest being their running back and their run game. If you think Jonathan Taylor is still a threat, and I do, then your job is to eliminate him and force Joe Flacco to beat you.
Gene Battaglia.
Are we going to get nervous and jerky about the Colts here?
We'll see.
Because of that, I think that this Bills team will sit up straight and look. Sean McDermott's such a good coach. I don't think we'd be talking about trap game, or should we be talking about a trap game?
It's a trap. 95.7 FM and AM 950 The Fan Rochester.
We welcome you back into the Sports Bar. It's Danger and Battaglia on the Fan. We appreciate you stopping by, listening however you may be doing so. AM 950, 95.7 FM. We sound our best in the free-to-download Odyssey app or on your smart device when you ask Alexa to play 95.7 The Fan. We've got our stream up. You can watch the Sports Bar, our YouTube channel, The Fan Rochester. We're streaming on Twitch at The Fan Rochester as well. Gino, I mentioned it earlier today. My fellow Americans, this is a special day in the Sports Bar. It's a historic day in the Sports Bar. It's a day where our allegiances are certified. It's a day where change is afoot. Today is a day you can take pride in the choices you've made to get you and yours to this stage of your life. There still remains a cloud of uncertainty, but we as Americans, we dig in, we roll up our sleeves, we remain steadfast in our support. Today, Tuesday, November 5th, in these United States of America, it's NFL trade deadline day.
Here in the Sports Bar, we're not like the NBA. I can't let that go. I'm sorry, I can't let that go. Like the rest of the world is working. Today is not a holiday. It's an important day, very important day. Not a holiday.
Just don't give the NBA an excuse to not work, because they will take it. They will take it. Oh, you mean I can rest today? I don't have to go on the court? Okay. Load management. We'll call it load management. Okay, that works. Yeah. No NBA action. Yeah, it is election day, but we will have Sabres hockey for you tonight on the Fan, 7 o'clock. But listen anyways. Yuri Kulik coming down to the Amerks.
Yeah, he wasn't playing up in Buffalo, so they'll give him some ice time here. And I would love to see him back with Roseanne. We were joined by head coach Mike Leone of the Amerks, who was just getting off a bus heading to Cleveland. And indeed, it will be Kulik in the lineup tomorrow night. Amerks and Cleveland. Amerks look to make it 5 in a row. At what point do the Sabres get this going? Like, we'll get to the trade deadline, but like tonight, if you lose to Ottawa.
At home.
At home?
Yeah.
Is any, like, are Sabre fans going to take the NBA approach? You know what? It's election night. I can't go to the Sabre game. Like, what is that arena going to look like? Is this going to look like, hey, we're just coming out of the pandemic. Nobody's here.
I was offered games on Monday, offered tickets to the game on Monday. And I said, yeah, sure, I'll go to that. We're off. You know, it's company holiday. There won't be a sports bar on Monday. But I'm like, yeah, okay. And I looked at the opponent. I'm like, oh, God, it's Montreal. That barn is going to be at least halfway full of Canadian fans. At least.
I will not go to a Leafs game for that reason. It's just
it's demoralizing.
It's demoralizing. If you go to an opposing arena, you know what you're in for. I don't like the home arena being.
We're fans. How do you think the players feel?
Well, that's part of the equation here.
I have to imagine mentally it is, right? Like, I just have to. I mean, they're professionals. They get paid millions of dollars to play a sport, so you expect them to show up and give their best effort. But I have to imagine that weighs on them when they take the ice against an opponent like Montreal on Monday.
Or flip it.
Hell,
like
Ottawa tonight. There'll be Sens fans in there just coming across the border.
Dan DeLorean. Go Sens, go. Yeah, like flip it. Like when the Buffalo Bills go to Seattle and Seahawk fans are flipping their tickets, how does that make the Bills feel? Like, hey,
we've got support.
We've got support.
No question. Well, like I said, we'll have that game for you tonight. Tomorrow night, Amerks Hockey is there in Cleveland. 7 o'clock, puck drop tonight. And tomorrow night, hockey here on the Fan Rochester, your proud home of Rochester Americans hockey and Buffalo Sabres hockey. All right, so the NFL trade deadline, the Bills standing pat, not making a move here before the deadline, which is a little out of character for Brandon Beane as you look back at his history here. Naim Hines was actually, I'm sorry, did I say Naim Hines? Yes, I did say Naim Hines was dealt right before the deadline, and last year Rasul Douglas right before the 4 o'clock deadline. Nothing this year. A little bit of a cryptic Instagram post from Jordan Phillips, who was released by the Cowboys today.
This does not mean he's joining the Buffalo Bills. I can't stress that enough. So Phillips released by Dallas. 10 minutes later, Phillips posts a picture of him doing a celebration in Bills gear saying, run it back. There's no way like a player could be released and 10 minutes later say, yeah, you're coming back. I find that hard to believe.
Well, we'll see what that looks like and if there is anything there to that. What we do know, what has been confirmed in the last 24 hours, we know that the Lions got a new pass rusher in Zadarius Smith from Cleveland. So you have now in Smith your replacement for Aiden Hutchinson, who's out for the rest of the season. Smith going to the Lions along with a 2026 7th-round pick, a 2025 5th-round pick, and 2026 6th-rounder back to the Browns. So a good move for the Lions there to get a little bit more out of their pass rush with Hutchinson on the shelf. I thought the Steelers made a strong play. We kind of knew that Mike Williams' days in New York were not for long, and the Jets wide receiver, now a Steeler, Mike Williams, goes to Pittsburgh in exchange for a 5th-round 2025 pick now for the New York Jets. And Marshawn Lattimore headed to Washington, the corner from New Orleans. Commanders giving up a little bit here to the Saints, a 3rd, a 4th, and a 6th in exchange for Lattimore and a 5th.
To bring it back to Buffalo, you've got these 2 roster spots open, okay? And one, you want a defensive lineman, and Dwan Smoot is more of a pass rusher, but each of the last 2 games, the Bills have brought up Eli Ankou from the practice squad. You're only allowed to do that with a particular practice squad player for 3 times. And once you do that, then you've got to keep him on the 53. Well, why not do that, Danger? I think what I've seen out of Eli Ankou, and again, you could also move him off the roster, but I would that would be the easy one.
Yeah.
Okay, you do need somebody at the safety position. Now that the trade deadline has passed, Mike Danger, now that we look at the options here, Mike Edwards wanted out. You know what the Bills could have said? No, sorry, you're a professional, you do this. Now the Bills, they will do this. Brandon Beane, I give him credit. Unless it's not cap friendly, but he will, behind closed doors, you figure it out. There wasn't a taker. Mike Edwards now free to sign anywhere. He never got hit going here because he couldn't be on the field. Let's be honest. Number 23 hasn't been reissued in Buffalo.
We still holding on to hope for that?
No, it's not hope. It's not hope. It's like this is how the Bills operate, whether it's A.J. Klein or whether it's Dean Marlowe. That's
Josh Norman.
Jordan Phillips. Like Jordan Phillips putting that out there. This would be his 3rd tour of duty if that actually happened. I don't think it will. But we've seen this where guys that are familiar with the system, guys that have been in the foxhole with you, we've never got the retirement goodbye from Micah Hyde. That's where this kind of starts, Danger. If he put it out there, if he filed his paperwork, if he said, hey, I'm done, this isn't a story. We're joined by Matt Perino last hour, and I think Matt just kind of put it out there bluntly, like the way he played last year, just thought there was nothing left. So
you saw how Jordan Poyer has looked this season.
Well,
you see how Trey White has looked this season. By the way, Trey White, we should mention, going to the Ravens as well, getting dealt by the Rams to the Ravens, and the Ravens get a little help for their poor secondary.
Well, Is it a waste of a roster space then? Because Mike Edwards wasn't doing anything on this team. Like, to bring Micah Hyde in to be that guy in the locker room, and maybe, hey, you're working alongside Cole Bishop day by day.
Make him a coach. Like at that point, why? I mean, he's a guy that wants. If he's the kind of competitor that I believe he is, and that we all think he is, he's not somebody that's going to be satisfied with being on the bench. He wants to be on the field. He wants to be where the action is. He's an alpha, and he's a great leader. He's done unbelievable things during his time in Buffalo. But, yeah, there wasn't a lot left in the tank at the end of last season. So now you have to wonder, okay, what kind of shape is he in? Has he kept himself in shape? And he's not in football shape. He would have to get into football shape in a relatively quick amount of time to get on the field. So if we're just talking about bringing in a body, somebody that can come in and act as a mentor, I don't know if that's in Micah Hyde's best interest. I don't know if he views that as something he should do or would want to do, given that he's always been a guy on the field. And if that's the case, well, hell, just bring him on to be a coach or an advisor or whatever. Maybe that doesn't happen now. Maybe it happens next year, or maybe it doesn't happen at all. I just am not. I wouldn't be excited other than for sentimental reasons if the Bills were to say, you know what, we're bringing back Micah Hyde. He's coming back.
This is Matt Beauvais who's driving that train. He does the It's Always Game Day in Buffalo podcast. It's for WKBW. And I'll just give you the title of the as soon as there we go. It's time for Buffalo to bring back safety Micah Hyde.
Why? He's not going to play. He's not better than Rapp. He's not better than Hamlin. He's not going to play.
He is not better than Cam Lewis.
Yeah, I for sentimental reasons, I can understand the narrative. Oh my God, it'd be great. Wouldn't it be great if he was part of a playoff run? He's not going to get on the field. I don't see how he gets on the field, barring an injury. And so you keep him on for depth, but are you going to get him to agree to come on when he knows that there's no chance of him getting on the field? I don't know that that's in his DNA. I don't know if that's in the DNA of a lot of NFL players. They want the action. They want to be on the field. That's why Mike Edwards isn't here. Mike Edwards is gone because he couldn't get on the field, and he wants to get on the field. We'll monitor it. And the next 24 hours is going to be interesting with the Bills. I mean, we'll hear from the coach tomorrow. They get back on the practice field in anticipation for their trip to Indianapolis. Hopefully we'll learn a little bit more, have a little bit more color on some of these injuries. I'm very concerned about what Keon Coleman is going to be.
Yeah, that's the one I think is a little concerning, but the language, and the way they phrase this, we need more information. That's what they use with Terrell Bernard, where basically the code for that was we can't put a definitive timetable on this. Coleman was walking around the locker room afterward. That doesn't mean anything at all. It is a wrist/forearm. Find out more tomorrow, you hope. I'm looking at the Bills practice squad right now, and Lewis Cine is on the practice squad. He's a safety.
Oh, yeah, Lewis Cine.
Cine, I'm sorry.
Yeah, Lewis Cine is interesting. I forgot about that guy. Yeah, he's on the practice squad, and that was, he was a high draft pick of the Vikings that didn't really pan out for them. And
yes.
And look, if Sean McDermott is this masterful developer of talent and can get something out of him, hard for me to say that he wouldn't bring more to the table than Micah Hyde at his age, at this stage of his career. That wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah, you've got some corners too, and Daquan Hardy is on there to Corey Couch. So that's kind of be the course of action, right? Like guys that are on the practice squad that just couldn't make the 53, bump one of them up.
Well, we'll see. We'll see. And again, the Bills not making a move here right at the trade deadline. And we'll see if there's any additions here over the course of the next 24 to 48 hours. We'll learn more when we hear from Coach McDermott tomorrow.
The Colts did not trade Anthony Richardson. A lot of rumors about the Colts moving on here, but how could you? Think about that. That would be a record for moving on for some guy. I think it's kind of nutty that they gave the guy 10 games.
I think it's funny that there are a lot of teams that are willing to give him the chance that the Colts aren't giving him. And I think it kind of speaks to the toxicity of his decision to pull himself from the game. Like how poorly that was received by his teammates, that locker room, that organization. Other teams, hey, fresh start here, man. Just don't make that same mistake twice. We take them.
If you're the Raiders, why not? If you're the Panthers, why not?
Raiders.
It's like,
yeah, I was laughing so hard earlier thinking about that coaching staff. And the word out of the Raiders today is the addition of Norv.
a former head coach. By the way, like if you go through some
of the Raiders,
there was, not to get sidetracked, but you look at some coaching staffs around the league, and I was looking at the Colts coaching staff. Oh, Tony Sparano. Do you remember that guy? These guys live on and on.
Of course he lives on and on, Gene, because he's Italian.
I'm going to coach your lineup.
Hey.
I'm going to coach your tight ends.
What do you need, huh? I'm Tony Sparano. I got it for you.
Not Soprano, Sparano.
No, who was the guy that was Sparano wasn't the guy. Wasn't there a coach who was with Miami for a little bit? There was another Tony. Which one passed away at a young age? Wasn't it Sparano?
Oh.
Why am I getting confused now? You mentioned Tony Sparano. For some reason, I thought he passed. Is there another one out there? Another Italian?
Okay.
Another Goomba that's out there?
I'll look this up here.
All right. Well, back to the Raiders. I never had like an opportunity to never really cared to look at the Raiders coaching staff to see exactly who they've got on that staff with Antonio Pierce. And when you see it, it's like, oh, well, I mean, the addition of Norv Turner now as a senior advisor to the offense with his son as the interim offensive coordinator, and Scott Turner. I mean, Joe Philbin is on this staff. You've got Cadillac Williams coaching running backs, Edgar Bennett coaching wide receivers. You've got a mishmash of former players and washout coaches like Rob Ryan as your senior defensive assistant and Marvin Lewis.
It's again, like we talk about how the juniors. My apologies to Sparano family. Tony Sparano Jr. is the offensive line coach of the Colts.
Okay.
Senior passed away.
I thought
Junior
so.
is.
When you said that, I was like, wait a minute. Hold on. So, good. The legacy continues. Tony Sparano Jr. Hey. Coaching the offensive line for the Colts?
Are you worried about Buffalo going up against the line coached by Tony Sparano Jr.?
Why isn't he coaching in Buffalo? He should be a coach in Buffalo. Tony Sparano Jr. If we didn't have that guy, we didn't have Cromer. We could bring in Sparano. Of course Sparano would be a good coach because he's Italian.
Jim Bob Cooter is their coordinator.
Yeah.
Jim Bob.
All right.
Yeah, the Raiders coaching staff is a joke. It's almost like Antonio Pierce, like, hey, I got this job. Who do I trust? All right, just call up some buddies here, pass that across before. Names I know.
Yeah. Let's get to a round of shots next on The Fan.
Shots on the sports bar as we'll set you up for the Sabres tonight. Why we might actually be talking about Sabres hockey tomorrow might not be all that really good. Syracuse Orange last night. What on earth was that?
Oh my God, am I terrible? We didn't talk about that yesterday.
I mentioned in the update. It was just kind of like, okay, the season begins.
Yeah,
but it's Lemoyne. Why
Right.
would we go into depth about that? Also, Bob Costas speaks about his retirement.
Did he drop any names in his quote?
Might have.
Okay, good. We'll get to a round of shots next. Last call still on the way as well. You can have the final word in the sports bar. 585-866-4FAN. 866-4326.
update.
The trade deadline passing in the NFL. The Bills did not make a move today in terms of a trade. We'll get to all those trades. But first, the Bills did make a move today, releasing safety Mike Edwards. Edwards had asked to be traded. 2 spots now open on the 53. Colts the next opponent. Dan Orlovsky of ESPN talking about their offense.
You're going to get a bevy of play-action pass, a ton, and Joe is going to throw the ball into parties. Like Joe's wildly aggressive, wildly confident, and he's capable of it. The number one person you have to stop is Josh Downs.
Tre'Davious White goes from the Rams to the Ravens. Other trades in the NFL today include Mike Williams going from the Jets to the Steelers. Marshawn Lattimore going from the Saints to the Commanders. Sabres hockey tonight, Buffalo hosting Ottawa. Our coverage begins at 7. Yuri Kulik loaned to the Amerks. Gene Battaglia, the Fan, Rochester.
From the field to the court to the rink, the sports leader is there. 95.7 FM and AM 950. The Fan, Rochester.
Happy hour continues. Time for a round of shots in the sports bar.
So did the Yankees call the bluff of Scott Boras here? Perhaps. So this happened here in the last 48 hours. Garrett Cole, pitcher for the Yankees, opting out of the contract, making him a free agent. Well, Cole changed his mind. The two sides now are working on the same deal as Cole originally had remaining. 4 years, $144 million. Now, it is not a done deal, as Cole would like more years tacked on here.
I'm just so dialed in on what Soto does. Give me Soto news. I want to know where Soto is. Who's offering what to Soto, and where is he going to end up?
Do you believe that 13 teams, that story, that 13 teams are making a pitch?
Sure.
Who would be the 13? Let's count them up. Mets, Yankees. Do we put the Dodgers in there?
Sure.
Cubs?
Yes.
Nationals?
Yes.
Rangers?
Sure. Dodgers. I'm sorry. You said Dodgers. Phillies.
Phillies? Padres?
No.
Giants?
Yes.
Red Sox?
Yes.
Okay, that's 9. Blue Jays?
How many teams are we up to?
9.
9 times.
Okay, so like that, yeah, we can get to 13.
Do the
easily,
exercise.
Yeah.
I think the Blue Jays would be, yes, to answer your question.
Yeah,
yes.
yes.
Sure.
So like that would leave 4 more there.
I mean, let's just eliminate the teams that are too cheap to have the conversation.
Like any other team.
The Steelers. I'm sorry, the Pirates, the Reds. Cheap teams aren't going to be in.
The Royals.
The Royals are
yeah.
cheap. You know, the White Sox. No,
No, not at all. Another note concerning, according to Mike Puma, the Yankees have reached out to the representation of Pete Alonso.
Pete Alonso.
That would be a very Yankee move, because you know what the Yankees need? They need just another power hitter that just, like is this kind of a so-so fielder.
Yeah. I just, in retrospect now looking at it, I kind of look at that roster and I'm like, it's kind of, I don't know how they made the World Series. I mean, like, it's not your traditional World Series. And for that matter, I guess the Dodgers, without a real starting rotation, didn't look like a traditional World Series roster.
That's why I thought that should have gone longer.
Yeah.
That's why I'm like, wow, that actually ended in 5. At the half last night, Syracuse opening night for the Orange. They were trailing to that Division I powerhouse, Lemoyne. 41-36. I looked at my phone and I chuckled. Like, you're kidding me, right? A big rally by the Orange gives them the 4-point win, 86-82. Delaware transfer Jair Davis leading the way for the Orange. He had 22 points, 12 rebounds. A returnee, Chris Bell, with 20. The Orange now are off until next Tuesday when they take on another basketball power, Colgate.
I feel horrible. I can't believe they started their season and it wasn't even a blip on my radar. I mean, look, I know I'm a football fan first, and I was thinking about Monday Night Football last night. I wasn't even considering watching something other than Chiefs-Bucks. But I feel really bad that Syracuse started their basketball season.
Is it a Syracuse thing, or is it just college basketball?
I'm not ready for it.
No, there are sports like the NHL when it comes up, like, no, not ready, not ready, not ready. Also, college basketball is one of those sports, too, especially with all the change. Like, who is really good? I couldn't give you an educated opinion on the Orange right now. What do you make of it?
We need some data points.
Yeah.
When we get some data points, then I'll have a little bit more interest in what's going on with college hoop. But right now, with all of the turnover, all of the change, and with everything going on, I mean, the NFL is still commanding mind share for me.
You used a marketing word. 5-yard penalty for
you blowing the whistle on me?
Yeah.
Is it
mind share? Like what? Take.
I don't have the bandwidth to handle all of the sports that are getting thrown at me, Gene.
Take off. Look, you keep doing this, you're going to find yourself deep in the weeds, buddy.
Well, when I look at these games at a more granular level, I can get. No.
Stop with all this. We have way too much synergy here. Imagine this.
Do we have our corporate buzzword bingo card ready? Because I think somebody just hit bingo on that one.
Imagine this. Now, San Jose, tonight, they get back Macklin Celebrini. Actually, he's been hurt here, the number 1 overall pick. They host Columbus tonight. Could San Jose win? Sure, why not? It's possible. Columbus isn't very good. And imagine Ottawa beating the Buffalo Sabres. Well, that's certainly possible,
Listen
right?
to Mr. Brightside over here.
Well, if that happens tonight, Danger, the Buffalo Sabres will have the worst record in the NHL.
Of course they will.
And it's not October anymore. Usually you get this false hope. We don't even have that anymore. Just hate watch, Sabre Sends, or hate listen. Tonight, 7 o'clock here.
I'll say this. What's frustrating is, at least in years past when they've been bad, they've given us a win streak at some point. Like, oh, hey, they're playing really good for a stretch of 10 or 12 games. Man, we got what did we get? A 4-game win streak earlier?
3. It
was 3?
Yeah.
They can't win every game, but they're just not playing well. They just don't look good.
The goaltending's not good. They're not putting the puck in the net. Oh, but look at the advanced metrics. This team is really good. It's going to turn around.
Advanced metrics? You mean you're getting granular again with...
Oh. 15-yard penalty. Bob Costas addressed his retirement from calling play-by-play baseball.
Didn't really need to, but thanks, Bob. Appreciate that.
Listen, we have to listen to what he says. I have too much regard for the game, for the craft, and for whatever my own standard has been to hit beneath my lifetime batting average.
Oh, he had to make it a baseball analogy. I see.
Yeah. Oh, but, Bob, they didn't renew your contract, right? It wasn't a retirement. They just were like, we're going to go in a different direction. Isn't that really?
Yeah. Well, shocking that this guy takes his, has to address his retirement. Look, good at his job. Not good this year, right? Really, really bad. Like the job he did during the ALCS universally was disliked.
Yeah, at least he's stepping off, or at least I guess somebody would have hired him to do whatever.
Great legacy. He'll go down as one of the best ever to do it. I just can't get past the guy who drops as many names as Costas does in this clip. It's too much for me to handle. Over the course of 1 minute and 20 seconds, we'll play the McDermott McLeod meter here and see how many names he drops.
I've heard this before. 15?
You going with 15?
15.
What if he repeats the name?
No.
It doesn't count?
Doesn't count.
If he says the name multiple times?
Okay.
I think it has to count.
It has to count.
I think it has to count. I think every time he drops a name
just in case you missed it,
or a last name, because he's he's so tight with these people, he doesn't even just refer to.
Look at Springsteen.
Yeah.
But I'm at the White House for the Presidential Medal of Freedom ceremony. It's toward the end of Barack Obama's second term, and Vin Scully is receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom. And he and his wife, Sandy, were kind enough to invite me and Jill to come to the ceremony. So we're hanging around before it begins, and everywhere you look, Diana Ross, Ellen DeGeneres, Michael Jordan, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Tom Hanks is there, Robert De Niro is there, and Springsteen is receiving a Presidential Medal of Freedom. Okay, so now picture this. I'm talking to Hanks, but my back is to what's happening in the corner of the room, but Hanks can see it over my shoulder. De Niro, meanwhile, true to your characterization, is just kind of standing there monosyllabically looking at the floor. So I'm chatting with Hanks about I forget what, and he says, "Hey, look at that. What do you suppose this conversation is like?" And I turn around, and alone, two guys in the corner, Vin Scully talking to Bruce Springsteen. So Hank says, "What do you think that conversation is like?" And I venture a guess. "You know, Bruce, I loved Greetings from Asbury Park, but you really hit it out of the park with Darkness on the Edge of Town."
That doesn't that encapsulate? By the way, 20.
20.
20 if you're counting along.
Pretty good.
But that is such a long way to go for a joke that really was so lame. Yeah.
Right, and it was whatever. Hey, he'll go down as one of the best, but am I going to sit back and be like, well, you know who I really wish was calling this game? I really wish Costas was back. Like, I can understand for as much fun as we had at Vin Scully, back in the day of the early infancy of the sports bar. Like, if somebody were to say, this game was good, Joe Davis does a good job, but man, I miss Vin Scully could call it. Like, I would listen to that. I don't think anybody's going to say that about Costas.
I don't think anybody would say it about McCarver, although you appreciated McCarver. I think McCarver was that guy that was very divisive back in the day. And the thing I think we learned is, like, wait a second. Joe Davis and John Smoltz were really, really good.
Smoltz is the best color guy in all sports right now on TV. He does an unbelievable job at color for baseball. He's the best. Number one on my power rankings. Not going to miss Costas, but one of the best to ever do it. And so let's respect that legacy. And I think he dropped another name. Congratulate him on not dropping a name in his statement on his retirement. Take a quick break. Last call is next. 866-4326 if you want to pull up a stool and join us.
You're listening to the On the sports leader, 95.7 FM and AM 950, The Fan, Rochester.
Wednesday is always fun in the sports bar. PJ Glasser, the host of Send It In on the BetQL Network, Odyssey Sports Betting Insider, stops by, gives us his favorite plays, college and pro football coming up this weekend. Insider calls presented by BetMGM. Go check out all the latest lines today on the BetMGM app.
Yeah, and the voice of the Buffalo Bills, Chris Brown. We don't have to say interim anymore or anything. Brownie joins us as he had a great call with that 61-yarder.
He's had a bunch of he's stepped up in a big way.
He is on top of his game, so love that for Brownie. We haven't talked to him since training camp, so he'll be stopping by tomorrow as – all right, we're going to learn about tomorrow about Keon Coleman here. What about a timeline for Cooper to return? Also, Christian Benford. Getting ready for the Colts. We'll maybe play some McDermott McLeod.
I want to get his thoughts on what we were talking about earlier with the open roster spots. And I know you and a lot of fans have brought this up. Is Micah Hyde bound to return to the Buffalo Bills? Does that make sense? What is Brownie's take on that? I'd love to hear it.
Well, you know who could end this conversation once and for all?
Micah Hyde.
Yeah, that's it. Like, until he says, folks, I'm done, it was great, or you know what, I'm going to go play for the Jaguars. Whatever it is, he hasn't done that. So until that actually happens, and Brandon Beane, to his credit, has not been cryptic, but he's been kind of just making sure that all the options are open.
Yeah, Bills stagnant at the trade deadline here. A couple of players worth noting. Trey White going from the Rams to the Ravens. Mike Williams leaving the Jets to join the Steelers. And Zadarius Smith leaving the Browns to join the Detroit Lions. Just a handful of the names being shuffled around. And Carolina getting their biggest win of the season and fleecing Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys.
I'm sorry, Cowboy fans.
By giving up the Cowboys giving up a 4th-round pick in exchange for wide receiver Jonathan Mingo, a 4th-round pick for a player who has 1 catch in the last 4 games and only 2 games in his career with more than 4 catches. A 4th-round pick. Yeah, great move, Cowboys.
Yeah.
Congratulations to Dan Morgan on fleecing the real commissioner of the NFL, Jerry Jones, there in Dallas. If you missed any of today's show, Odyssey Rewind and the free-to-download Odyssey app. You can go back and listen segment by segment. You can also get us wherever you enjoy your podcasts. Just search out the Sports Bar. That includes Odyssey. That includes Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and wherever you enjoy your shows. Michael F. Florio got your Week 10 waiver wire priorities, your Week 10 waiver wire pickups. He joined us last hour. We were also joined last hour by the head coach of the Rochester Americans, Michael Leone, joining us from Cleveland, where his team will take the ice tomorrow night to take on the Monsters, a game you'll be able to hear on the Fan Rochester starting at 7. And, of course, Bills news and notes along with trade deadline coverage from our buddy Matt Perino covering the Bills for the Syracuse Post-Standard. You can get those conversations and more when you look for the Sports Bar wherever you enjoy your shows. A big thank you to everybody who watched on our YouTube channel at the Fan Rochester. Thanks for the comments. Thanks for liking and subscribing, and also our stream on Twitch at the Fan Rochester as well. Sabres hockey tonight. Teams at home, Ottawa the opponent, but listen anyways, that's coming up at 7. Before we get to that, it's always worth your while to check out JR Sport Brief. He's on the way, coming up at 6. Back tomorrow at 3 with a brand new episode, Sports Bar, Danger and Battaglia on the Fan Rochester.